Chapter 844. When they went to school, many students would have a question. Is the school unwilling to spend money to hire a cleaner? Why is it that we students have to do the cleaning work every day when the cleaner can do it? Even if the school arranged duty for the students, there was still a reasonable excuse to cultivate the students' sense of responsibility and self-care ability. However, this kind of question had never been cut off in the minds of the children. Fortunately, the current Shishi was still young. She was still at the age where she would only listen to instructions and not ask why. As a matter of fact, on Thursday evening, it was Shishi's turn to be responsible for cleaning the classroom and the school's area of responsibility. For students were left to clean the classroom, while Shishi, Lu Xiaoyu, and the other 4 students were arranged by teacher Li Ruolin to sweep the fallen leaves in the pavilion of the school. Let's go to the tool room to get the cleaning tools first. After we get them, remember to return them to the old man in charge of registration. Li Ruolin took the 6 ignorant children and taught them step by step how to sweep the floor from scratch. Li Ruolin took 4 fluffy miscanthus brooms and 2 dustpans. It had to be said that these brooms were taller than the children, and each tool was heavy. For the first grade children, it was not a small challenge. However, to Li Ruolin's surprise, the children were very excited and began to fight over them. Although it was a bit difficult to lift the heavy tools, they still excitedly grabbed their respective tools and waved them around with all their might, as if they were great generals holding the green dragon crescent blade. Li Ruolin didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she stopped them. All right, stop playing with the brooms. What if you hit others? Let's go sweep the floor. Even though the teacher shouted for them to stop playing around, the children were still very excited and chattered noisily along the way. Our brooms are not like this. Our brooms are very light. I don't even have to use much strength to hold them. Lu Xiaoyu said to Shishi. However, Shishi had a different opinion. Our brooms are also this big. My grandfather's brooms are even bigger, super big. Wow. Why do they need such a big broom? I can't even lift it. Lu Xiaoyu asked in surprise. Because they had a big courtyard. However, Shishi didn't know the reason. The little girl giggled and said something without any substance to her friend. Although they couldn't solve the problem, the two still chatted happily. Shishi was very strong. She was the only one among the 6 children who could easily handle the weight of the broom. The other 3 boys with brooms were having a hard time. Lu Xiaoyu had already swapped the broom with a boy's dustpan. Little Fishy was not as strong as Shishi. Girls were delicate and weak, so there was no way she could play with such a heavy and bulky person. Yangshi, lend me your broom for the teacher. When they reached the place, Li Ruolin took the broom from Shishi's hand and demonstrated to the children how to sweep the leaves and trash. You have to sweep these together first. You don't have to sweep too much at once. For example, if we sweep such a small area, we can call the student with the dustpan over and sweep the trash into the dustpan. Xiaoyu, come over here. Yes, you have to press the dustpan like this. After cleaning it up, you can dump the trash that has been swept into the trash can over there. Li Ruolin was very careful and gently taught the children the steps and processes. However, not every child could be like Shishi, staring at the teacher with wide eyes. 2 mischievous boys looked at the teacher halfway and couldn't wait to grab the broom and sweep it left and right. In fact, they were like peacocks who were trying their best to show off their beautiful wings in front of the opposite sex. They cried out loudly and swung the broom with the momentum of sweeping away 1,000 troops. In the end, leaves flew everywhere and dust flew everywhere. The 2 little girls, Shishi and Lu Xiaoyu, who loved to be clean, hurriedly ran away and stood far away from them. All right everyone, let's work hard together and try to finish sweeping the ground here as soon as possible. Li Ruolin helplessly made a hasty ending and turned around to teach the 2 little guys who were a little naughty. At home, sweeping the floor was her father's job. The fallen leaves in the yard and the bushes were taken care of by a special property management staff. This was the first time in Shishi's life that she had swept the floor. Therefore, the little girl also excitedly played with her little friends. I want to sweep this place. It's a super big place. Shishi fiddled with the broom and pointed at the area beside the checkered tiles and the flower bed. She giggled at Lu Xiaoyu and said, "Then you sweep in with me in your shovel." She was very focused on sweeping the floor, but her posture was a little wrong. She held the handle with both hands, as if she was holding a hoe. She waved it left and right awkwardly. Fortunately, Shishi was stronger and full of enthusiasm. After sweeping for a while, the little girl gathered a piece of trash with great effort, but she didn't realize the problem. Shishi had listened to the teacher's explanation just now, but she was more focused on how to cooperate with her friends and ignored how the teacher held the broom. Fortunately, her little friend had been arranged to sweep the floor at home before. Lu Xiaoyu stood aside and watched for a while. She scratched her head and said hesitantly, Shishi, this is not how you hold the broom. You have to hold it upright. Hold it upright? What kind of hold it upright? Shishi looked at Lu Xiaoyu in confusion. Chapter 845. Shishi, you're so strong. Lu Xiaoyu was a little tired after running back and forth a few times. She looked enviously at Shishi, who was waving the big broom with ease. Really? Xian Air also said that I'm super strong. Shishi said happily. But Chen Shiyin is also very strong. Her papa is a boxer. He's super strong. Who's Chen Shiyin? Lu Xiaoyu asked curiously. Before Sisi finished her words, she continued. But her papa is very powerful. But my papa is even more powerful. My papa defeated the big bad wolf and saved Huahua. Huahua is a very cute deer. If she continued talking about this topic, there would be no end to it. Fortunately, Shishi stopped in time. She said with a smile. Oh little fishy, I forgot that you don't know Chen Shiyin yet. Chen Shiyin is my good friend, just like Xian Air. But she's not in our class. She's in class 8. Let's go play with her together next time. Shishi was chatting with her friends in full swing, so she didn't pay attention to the environment around her. On the flower bed behind her, there was an iron wire that was used to fix the flagpole a few days ago, but it was probably missing. It was hanging there shakily. When the little girl swept the floor, she stepped back step by step. As she chatted with Lu Xiaoyu, she stepped back unsteadily. Suddenly, the hem of her shirt was caught by the iron wire. With a tearing sound, Sisi subconsciously turned her little head and stared blankly at her clean white shirt that had been torn open. What's going on? Shishi didn't react yet. Lu Xiaoyu poked her little head and said in surprise, Wow Shishi, your shirt is torn. Yes, Shishi also saw it. The little girl realized that her shirt was really torn, so she panicked. It was the first time she encountered such a situation. In the past, even if her clothes were dirty, they were never torn. The little girl didn't know what to do for a moment. She was confused, self-blaming, and worried. Lu Xiaoyu was more enthusiastic. She threw down the dustpan and went to help Shishi pull the iron wire that was still hooked on it. Then she smiled and said, Okay, it's off. But my shirt is still torn. Shishi was not happy at all. She gently pouted her little mouth and reached out to grab the hem of her shirt. There was a finger-long tear, so big that Shishi could fit her little palm. Her shirt was torn. It wouldn't look good. Yeah, what should we do? Your clothes are torn. Lu Xiaoyu also curiously glanced at him and said, This was a good question. Shishi also wanted to know what to do. I don't know what to do either. Shishi lowered her little head. Her two little hands grabbed the hem of her shirt as she said in a muffled voice. Now the little girl was panicking. She was worried that her parents would blame her for tearing her beautiful school uniform. Shishi, who was originally in a bright mood, was now frowning with worry. This helpless look made people feel pity for her. Li Ruolin inadvertently turned her head and happened to see the gloomy atmosphere. Something was wrong. Moreover, Shishi and Lu Xiaoyu's cleaning tools were on the ground. She thought that the two girls had a conflict. She quickly walked over and asked with concern, What's wrong? What happened? Lu Xiaoyu raised her little head. When she saw Teacher Li Ruolin, her eyes lit up. She excitedly said to the teacher, Teacher Li, Shishi's shirt was torn by this thing. What do you think we should do? Shishi was still a little worried. She raised her eyes in low spirits and looked at the teacher. Only then did Li Ruolin understand. She anxiously lifted the hem of Shishi's shirt and asked, Other than your clothes being torn, are you hurt anywhere else? Yangshi, were you scratched by this iron wire anywhere? Shishi looked at the teacher in confusion. She hesitated for a moment before saying, My clothes were torn. The teacher is asking if you were scratched. Do you feel any pain anywhere? Li Ruolin checked Shishi's back. She didn't see any wounds, but she was still worried and asked. Shishi understood this time. She shook her little head. That's good. Li Ruolin's worried heart relaxed a little. Being scratched by these rusty iron wires was not a small matter. These children had delicate bodies. If they were injured anywhere, they would inevitably be tortured by tetanus needles. However, Li Ruolin noticed Shishi's sad look. She smiled and said, It's okay if your clothes are torn. After everyone finishes sweeping the floor, the teacher will take you to the office and mend it for you. Shishi blinked her big eyes and asked doubtfully, It's still okay. Is it done? The little girl also had no concept of mending clothes. At home, Yang Yi and Murphy were not the kind of people who were diligent and thrifty. After a while, Shishi followed Teacher Li to the first grade office. It was a place where the teachers could rest, grade homework, and prepare for lessons after the two classrooms were connected. This was the first time Shishi had been here. The little girl followed behind Teacher Li timidly, but her big eyes looked around curiously. There were still some teachers who stayed in the office to work. However, Shishi didn't recognize them and didn't dare to greet them. Isn't this Big Ming? Cough student Yang Shi? Teacher Li, why did you call her to the office? Did she do something wrong? Finally, a familiar voice was heard. Shishi saw her math teacher. She finally saw an acquaintance. Lu Xianxian had just let it slip. She and Li Ruolin had agreed not to make it public. Teacher Lu, what nonsense are you talking about? Does she have to do something wrong to be called to the office by me? Li Ruolin smiled and put her hand on Shishi's shoulder. She patted her affectionately and said, Student Yang, she is the model student in our class. She is obedient, sensible, and smart. How could she do anything wrong? It's like this. Li Ruolin told Lu Xianxian about Shishi's clothes being torn. I took off the iron wire and threw it away. I don't know who left it there. Fortunately, it didn't hurt anyone. Shishi didn't quite understand what a model student meant, but in context, Shishi felt that Teacher Li was praising her. She was happy in her heart. Hello, Teacher Lu. The little girl greeted obediently. Good. Lu Xianxian smiled and patted Shishi's little head. Don't worry, your Teacher Li will help you mend your clothes. Okay. Shishi's heart was filled with hope at this moment, and she responded sweetly. Li Ruolin took out a small needle and thread box from her drawer. She didn't know why she would put these things in the office, but now was not the time to think about it. There is no white thread, only black thread and red thread. Li Ruolin was a little embarrassed, but she didn't want to disappoint Shishi. Suddenly, the paper card with a flower drawn on it that Shishi showed her on Tuesday flashed through her mind, and she had an idea in her heart. Chapter 846. Huijia Primary School's curriculum arrangement was one of its major features. Unlike public schools, it had 4 classes in the morning and 2 classes in the afternoon. After 3:40 p.m., other primary schools had their last class. However, Huijia Primary School's curriculum was for interest classes from that time until school was over. Just like when Yang Yi came to Lanzhou for an inspection, Huijia Primary School paid particular attention to quality education for the children, and would not only focus on grades. Every child could choose their own interest classes from Monday to Friday according to their own interests. Huijia Primary School offered a wide variety of interest classes, from the more popular ones like singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, sports, chess, painting, and even more special ones like reading, reciting, debating, science, and so on. Huijia Primary School obviously invested a lot of manpower and resources in offering so many interest classes and hiring professional teachers to teach them. Of course, it was the first week of school, and the children were still making choices with their parents. Therefore, the interest classes were temporarily left to the children to do whatever they wanted in the classroom. Since there was nothing else to do, Li Ruolin asked the students on duty to start working early and try to finish cleaning before school was over, so that they wouldn't have to stay after school. Yang Yi went to pick up Shishi at 4:30 p.m., as scheduled. The little girl's mood seemed to have brightened up again. As soon as she saw her father, She couldn't wait to turn around and show her father the back of her clothes. Papa, look, I have a little flower here. She showed it happily. It was a little flower sewn with a needle and thread. It had red petals and black leaves. The ratio was a little unique, but the design was clever and looked interesting. Why is there a flower sewn on your school uniform? Yang Yi asked in surprise. Who sewed it for you? Teacher Li did it for me. The little girl turned around and pointed at the head teacher, Li Ruolin, who was talking to other parents. She smiled sweetly and said, Because my clothes were torn, the teacher fixed it for me. There's also a little flower. The little girl liked the little flower. She turned left and right with a smile, as if she wanted to admire it from different angles. At this moment, Lan Xian, who had already understood the situation from Shishi, added, Yes, Shishi tore her clothes. There's a big hole. When did you tear it? How did you tear it? Yang Yi was more concerned about this. The little flower didn't matter. The question was, why did Shi's clothes tear? Shishi blinked her big eyes, and her excitement dissipated a little. She felt her father's urgency, but the little girl seemed to have misunderstood. She thought that her father was going to blame her. She pouted slightly and whispered, Because I was sweeping the floor with little fishy, and then I accidentally tore it. Papa, don't be angry, okay? The movement here attracted Li Ruolin's attention. She was going to wait for Shishi's parents to come over and explain to him. Now that she saw Yang Yi, she quickly walked over. After hearing Shishi's words, Li Ruolin subconsciously thought that Yang Yi had a bad temper. She quickly explained, It's like this, Mr. Yang. Yang Yi's clothes accidentally hooked on a wire when she was on duty and cut a hole. When Yang Yi heard this, his reaction was similar to Li Ruolin's. He squatted down and anxiously hugged his daughter's soft little body. He asked, Shishi, other than your school uniform being torn, are there any other injuries on your body? Were you scratched? No, it's just that the school uniform was torn. Mr. Yang, I've checked it. Li Ruolin said from the side. Shishi also nodded. She looked at her father eagerly and muttered, Papa, don't be angry, okay? My clothes are all ready. Yang Yi breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. What are you thinking about? Why would Papa be angry with you? Papa is concerned about you. It doesn't matter if your clothes are torn, as long as you are fine. Look at such a big hole. Papa was almost scared to death by you. I was worried that you were injured too. In fact, when he heard Shishi say that her clothes were torn, he thought that it was a school bullying incident. Shishi was bullied, so he was a little angry. Papa, let me tell you, little fishy, and I don't know what to do. My clothes are torn. Shishi didn't care so much. When she heard that her father didn't care about her clothes being torn, she was in a good mood. She happily hugged her father's neck and couldn't wait to tell her father how scared she was when her clothes were torn. Let's talk about this later when we get home. Yang Yi smiled and patted Shishi's little head. He said, Should we thank Teacher Li? She helped you mend your clothes, and she even made them look so good. Li Ruolin listened from the side and quickly waved her hand. No, this is what I should do. Besides, it's also my negligence. I didn't take good care of the child. I didn't even know there was a wire. Yang Yi stood up with Shishi in his arms. He smiled at her and said, Teacher Li, how can this be blamed on you? It's inevitable for children to get hurt. After suffering this once, I believe that she will be more careful in the future. But I still want to thank you for mending Shishi's clothes. Thank you, Teacher Li. Shishi snuggled in her father's arms and said sweetly under his small movements. Li Ruolin didn't expect Yang Yi to be so kind. When she saw Yang Yi's anxious look just now, her heart skipped a beat. She thought that she had met an unreasonable parent. This was just a small misunderstanding. It's nothing. This is what a teacher should do. Li Ruolin smiled. At around 9 o'clock in the evening, Li Ruolin and Lu Xianxian were preparing for class in the living room of their house. Being a teacher was a little tough. Teaching was only a part of the job. The few classes that they gave on the podium didn't even exceed half of their working time. Usually they had to mark homework, prepare lesson plans, and organize meetings. If they were the head teacher, they had to take care of the children in the class, manage discipline, and a lot of other things. It was very common for people like them to continue preparing for class at night when they came back. Of course, Li Ruolin was very serious in preparing for class, but Lu Xianxian, the female hooligan, was a little half-hearted. She was seriously writing 2 words for a while, scratching her feet for a while, studying her nails for a while, and then taking out her phone to look at it. Micro-broadcasting. Wow. Lan, look, the clothes you sewed for Yang Shi in the afternoon. Suddenly Lu Xianxian shouted. Yang Yi posted it on micro-broadcasting. Many people are praising you as a teacher. Li Ruolin curiously came over to take a look. Shishi's family chef? This is Yang Yi's Weibo? Yes. You don't know, this guy is a gourmet who has been delayed by the entertainment industry. Lu Xianxian giggled. When did you follow him? Li Ruolin asked curiously as she looked at Yang Yi's micro-broadcasting. It's rare for us to have an interaction with a big star. Of course we have to follow him. Micro-broadcasting's picture was a single school uniform photo. Shishi had changed her clothes after returning home. Yang Yi probably took the photo before throwing the clothes into the washing machine. In the middle of the photo was the small flower she embroidered. In Li Ruolin's opinion, the stitches were still not strict and fine enough. It's a little embarrassing. Li Ruolin saw the tens of thousands of likes and thought with shame. Micro-broadcasting's text simply described the experience of the homeroom teacher mending Shishi's clothes after she tore them. There were no other comments, as if Yang Yi was just casually describing a daily trivial matter. But in the comments, Li Ruolin received unanimous praise from her fans. Full of positive energy, I'm going to call this teacher like crazy. Are there more teachers like this? Please give me a dozen. Not only did she help sew the clothes, but she also skillfully embroidered a small flower. I suddenly feel that this teacher is too cute. She must like it very much, right? When my wife was in elementary school, I feel that I can rest assured knowing that she had such a good teacher to take care of her. Get lost upstairs, this is my wife. At this moment Lu Xianxian, who was leaning close to Li Ruolin's face, suddenly laughed. She pointed to a comment on her phone and read it slyly. All of you can go and snatch Shishi. Teacher, I'm going to take her away. Take her away. Take her away. Ah. The echo was made by Lu Xianxian herself. Li Ruolin didn't know what kind of joke wife was, but when she heard this sentence, her face couldn't help but turn red. She patted the female hooligan Lu Xianxian reproachfully. Of course at this moment, Li Ruolin's heart was filled with joy and gratitude. This gratitude was for herself. In the past, she had always been good to the children secretly. At most, she would receive the gratitude of the parents and children like in the afternoon. But she had never received the recognition of so many people like tonight. It turned out that being a kind person and being gentle to the people and things in life could feel so good. Chapter 847. In the first half of the year, the variety shows that people were talking about were reality shows like The Limit Challenge. But in the second half of the year, the music variety show China's Voice, which was a hidden talent show, became popular all over the country. Especially during the weekend, after the new episode of the show was broadcasted. All kinds of media reports about China's Voice sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. Some were positive and some were negative. On the stage of China's Voice, the coaches would not ask about the past of the contestants, and the program team would not ask the contestants to fabricate their own stories. But they could not stop the enthusiasm of the media. In the eyes of the media reporters, these contestants who had finally made a name for themselves must have had a special past. And these pasts would definitely be breaking news. For example, when they dug into Thousand Miles Chuanshu, they found out the connection between Thousand Miles Chuanshu and Yang Yi. It became a hot topic, and Yang Yi had no choice but to come out and explain himself. In addition, Su Lu, who was on the same show as Thousand Miles Chuanshu and also received the coaching fourth transition, was also dug up by the entertainment reporters. Although Su Lu was a bar singer before this, it was not a big news. After all, China's Voice's official website introduced Su Lu's past as a bar singer. However, with the characteristics of entertainment reporters, they would definitely not be willing to report this news in a plain and ordinary way. They did not know where they got a photo of Su Lu's red hair from before, But they made up a story about Su Lu hanging out in nightclubs. It had to be said that this kind of negative news had a great impact on the contestants themselves. Although China Star produced a lawyer's letter to warn them, the media retracted the report and officially apologized. But many fans who only read the first half of the article and did not read the second half had a bad impression of Su Lu. Even a few years later, some tabloid media purposely skirted around the edges, saying that Su Lu's image before her debut was not serious. Of course, if one wanted to develop in the entertainment industry, they would have to endure such open and covert attacks. As long as they became strong enough, like Yang Yi and Chen Yijie, they would not have to worry about the impact of these small media reports. Moreover, whether it was positive or negative, it was an important factor to maintain a high level of exposure. China's voice was frequently reported, and the personal stories of the contestants were frequently exposed. Wasn't this a symbol of the popularity of the show and the popularity of the contestants? Some people couldn't even get such exposure even if they wanted it. The Great Travel Challenge had already aired a few episodes. As a travel reality show, it received a lot of attention when Xingyao Productions and Xiangnan TV Station announced the guest lineup. On the other hand, Xiangnan TV Station was a big producer of variety shows and had a wide audience base. Therefore, when the first episode was broadcast, the ratings of Travel Challenge were quite good. However, in the process of watching this show, many people subconsciously compared it to the Limit Challenge. They couldn't help but spit in their hearts. What kind of show is this? It had to be said that the location of the Great Travel Challenge was quite good. In the first episode of the French special, the opening shot was panned from afar to close-up. Every frame was beautiful and could be used as a computer desktop if cut out. However, with the appearance of the 6 fixed members, 3 men and 3 women, the quality of the program began to drop like an avalanche. Li Man could be considered to have a glib tongue, but she met a group of pig teammates, especially that beauty from the popular girl group. She thought her answers were cute, but it was obvious that she was trying to act cute. Her fake baby voice was very stupid no matter how you looked at it. Yi Qing's personality was more impulsive, and her words often put everyone on the spot, so they could only rely on Li Man to smooth things over. Of course, Li Man herself wasn't any better. Her performance at the beginning was still quite normal. However, reality shows were filmed 24/7. Gradually, Li Man couldn't keep up the act. In some of her normal actions, her bossy attitude towards Chao Tsong was gradually revealed. No wonder Chao Tsong had a falling out with them. After watching this episode, the audience had a rough idea of what was going on. These people all have the temperament of a young master and a young miss. The more important part of the show was the Great Challenge. Of course, the traces of learning from the Limit Challenge were very obvious. However, Xingyao Productions still had a few tricks up their sleeves. Their game design was quite interesting. But the problem was that they chose the wrong members. At the beginning of the challenge, the popular little fresh meat kept complaining to the camera, and the beauty from the popular girl group acted coquettishly. Although the interaction with the director was also learning from the Limit Challenge, the problem was that after the interaction, they didn't fully participate in the game. One was lazier than the other, and one was stupider than the other. Even if they finally finished the task, the audience wasn't stupid. They had already started to complain on the internet. Isn't the traces of cheating too obvious? This passerby they asked for help. Are they sure it wasn't arranged by the director? That's right. After watching the first episode, the reputation of the Great Travel Challenge collapsed. Even if Xingyao Productions bought a water army and barely maintained its ratings, compared to the Limit Challenge, this show was far worse. The ratings of the second episode dropped by a third, and the ratings of the third episode were less than a third of the first episode. In response to the audience's complaints, Xingyao Productions' Luo Jinting stepped forward to explain. Everyone, don't worry. From the 6th episode onwards, our show will have a huge change. Because after Chao Tsong quit, we invited a very important variety show Big Shot to join us. But the audience didn't buy it. They even left comments on Xingyao's micro-broadcasting. Come on, we can only save the show if we replace the other 5 people besides Chao Tsong. Otherwise, it doesn't matter who Chao Tsung is replaced. Speaking of which, Chao Tsung is the only one among the 6 who dares to fight. She even worked hard to complete the tasks that affected her image as an idol. For example, she ate worms in exchange for money. If Chao Tsung is replaced, what's the point of this show? Even if we get a new variety show Big Shot, they'll probably be angered to death by the other 5. Without Chao Tsung, I'm very worried about whether they can still complete the tasks. Previous poster. Don't worry. Every time there's a crisis during the filming, a mysterious passerby will appear to save the world. No matter what, the Great Travel Challenge's reputation and viewership ratings were constantly slipping. Meanwhile, China's The Voice's popularity had pushed this reality show to the extreme of its decline. Li Man didn't know about this. She had just returned from filming Brazil's Jungle Station. She was so tired that she wanted to take a bath and sleep for a few days and nights. But her manager came looking for her the next day. Man, let me tell you, your new album might have to be delayed. It's best to release it next year, Ichi said. Why? Li Man asked in surprise. I'm getting a lot of attention now. Why should I wait until next year? By then, the Great Travel Challenge will be completely out of business. What am I going to release then? Li Man was a little agitated. Ichi smiled bitterly and said, It can't be helped. During the few days when you went to film the show, Phoebe Studio, which is Yang Yi, announced that Murphy would be releasing an album at the end of November. If you release it in December, you'll definitely clash with her. No one wanted to release an album with Murphy. Yang Yi's creative ability was obvious to all. Murphy's singing ability was also known to everyone. If they were to clash with her, she was destined to steal the limelight. Li Man listened and was silent for a while. She gritted her teeth and said, Why do they always clash with me? At this moment, thousands of alpacas were running in her heart. Ichi smiled bitterly and didn't know how to answer. We can release it earlier. Anyway, the album is ready. How about releasing it in October? I'll ask Xingyao Productions to free up my schedule, Li Man said angrily. Originally, when she released the album at the end of the year, she would have finished filming her variety show and could go all out to hit the charts. But now, if she released the album in October or November, it would conflict with the recording of the Great Travel Challenge. But Ichi shook her head and said, The company's people analyzed that October is not suitable, because in October, Chen Yijie will release an album. This is his first Mandarin album. It is said that Yang Yi also wrote a few songs for him. You'd better not fight with him head-on. Yang Yi. Now Li Man was going crazy when she heard this name. Why is it him again? Li Man's voice was squeezed out from her teeth, and her face was flustered and exasperated. Chapter 848. Brother Yang, what interest course did you choose for Shishi? On Sunday morning, Lan's Hao Kai brought Wu Jingjing and Lan Xian over for a visit. Boss Lan had just returned from Jinling City yesterday evening, and was travel-worn. However, he couldn't sleep in because Lan Xian woke up early and was noisy early in the morning. The entire villa was restless. Lan Xian said she wanted to go to Shishi's house to play. Coincidentally, Lan's Hao Kai was also preparing to discuss with Yang Yi about the design of the amusement park. This time, he went to Jinling. Because of the country's opening policy, the officials of Wuqing County and Jinling City were still very enthusiastic towards him. Their efficiency was also much higher than before. It was probably only a matter of time before they bought the training island. Yang Yi also said that after they bought the training island, they would immediately start building the first park of the amusement park. However, building a house required a design, not to mention the more complicated design of the amusement park. It involved billions, or even tens of billions of capital investment. Lan's Hao Kai was very cautious about this. A normal design team definitely wouldn't do. Whether it was a domestic design team or a foreign design team, their qualifications had to be world-class. Of course, how to choose the design team, what the standards were, and how much the budget was needed. These issues all needed to be discussed slowly with Yang Yi. Lan's Hao Kai wasn't in a hurry. Therefore, his main purpose for visiting Yang Yi's house today was to see what interest course Yang Yi had chosen for Shishi. Last night, Wu Jingjing had shown him the list of interest courses offered by Huijia Primary School. He had a headache. Shishi can choose whatever she wants. Yang Yi turned to look at Shishi, who was playing with Lan Xian. He smiled and said, "However, I did tell her that although I won't interfere with her choice, she has to be responsible for her own choice. If she chooses a course, she has to study it well this semester." After Lan Kai heard Yang Yi's actions, he smiled bitterly. "That's Shishi. Do you know what our Xian heir said?" Her mother asked her. "Xian heir, what course do you want to choose?" She said. "Can I not choose? It's so tiring to go to class." If Lan Kai didn't let Lan Xian choose, Lan Xian might not even be bothered to go to class. However, what Lan Kai said made Murphy very happy. She smiled and said, "I thought Xian heir would ask if there's any good food." "Hey, let's not talk about her. Murphy, what course did Shishi choose?" "We also want to take a look," Wu Jingjing said with a smile. "She likes dancing, so she chose a dancing class on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And Shishi likes drawing, so this class is on Thursdays. She also chose a reading class on Fridays. She said she likes reading," Murphy said as she counted with her fingers. In fact, Shishi had a little misunderstanding about the reading class. The school arranged this interest class so that the teacher could take them to read children's books. There was an introduction on the directory of the interest classes. In the reading class, the teacher would guide the children to read profound prose or famous works. Of course, children of different ages would have different classes of difficulty. But even in the first grade reading class, there were only stacks of words with almost no illustrations. However, Yang Yi didn't tell Shishi in detail. He thought that Shishi could try a new challenge. And Chun Shiryan told Shishi that she chose the shuttlecock kicking class, so Shishi also chose one. "They will attend this class on Monday afternoon," Murphy said. "Xian heir definitely doesn't like dancing and shuttlecock kicking." Wu Jingjing shook her head. "But I think she can sign up for a reading class." Murphy smiled and said, "You can choose a vocal music class for Xian heir. Xian heir has a good voice. She is a good singer." Before Murphy finished her words, Lan Xian's loud screams and laughter came from the side. She wasn't in any danger. She was having fun with Shishi and Tong Tong. The two girls were imitating Tong Tong in the castle. They crawled around the pillows, dolls, and other obstacles. Tong Tong was crawling and chasing after sister Lan Xian, who came to play with her. The little guy was laughing heartily, having a lot of fun as well. It had to be said that Tong Tong was very athletic. Although he didn't know how to walk, he could crawl very fast. He even knew how to twist his little butt and use his knees to increase his speed. Lan Xian was almost caught by Tong Tong just now. "Little brother, don't keep chasing after sister Xian heir. There's still me." Shishi turned her head and found that she was left out. She giggled and shouted. The adults looked away from the children. Wu Jingjing nodded to Murphy and smiled. "Learn to sing? That's a good idea." After chatting for a long time, Murphy went to the bathroom. Yang Yi brought out a plate of cut fruits from the kitchen and called Lan Xian and Shishi to eat. Wu Jingjing played with her phone out of boredom. When Murphy came back, she heard Wu Jingjing laughing. She asked curiously, "What's so funny?" "Look at this news. It's about Yang Yi." Wu Jingjing took the phone and smiled. "They just found out that Yang Yi is a billionaire." "That's right." Wu Jingjing was looking at the news article written by Qian Dan from Metropolis Entertainment. The poor boy then became a billionaire now. Murphy didn't lose out by marrying him. The title of the article was very scary. Therefore, when Metropolis Entertainment's micro-broadcasting was published today, many web portals contacted and reposted it. "Let me have a look too." Hearing Wu Jingjing say that, Lan Kai became interested. He took out his phone and asked Wu Jingjing to find it. He also started looking through it. In this article, Qian Dan started by using the year's hottest shows, The Limit Challenge and China's Voice, to attract people's attention. She exposed the fact that these two shows were not only designed by Yang Yi, but also produced by China Star Productions, which was solely owned by Yang Yi. Through China Star Productions, Yang Yi earned the biggest share of the profits after the two shows became popular. However, no one knew that when Yang Yi joined forces with Xingyao Productions to acquire China Star Productions, he spent nearly 100 million renminbi to acquire the original production team and other assets of China Star Productions. To be able to take out 100 million renminbi in liquid funds, and even take out 30 million renminbi to invest in the Children's Book Author Support Fund, to support the development of children's literature, Yang Yi is no longer the ordinary person who was thought to be incompatible with Murphy 2 years ago. He is also no longer the poor kid who lived in the slums that some reports dug up. It had to be said that Qian Dan had put in a lot of effort for this article. She counted in detail the books that Yang Yi had published, the movies that he had filmed, the songs that he had sold, and the copyrights that he had sold over the past few years. Combining it with some media reports, Qian Dan roughly calculated Yang Yi's current net worth. It's at least 600 million renminbi. Of course, it could be even more, because China Star Productions' 2 shows are very popular now. If Yang Yi is willing to sell them, they would be worth at least 300 to 400 million renminbi. Of course, Yang Yi would not be so stupid as to sell off these 2 golden eggs. After reading the entire article, Murphy appeared very calm. On the other hand, after Lan Kai glanced at the 600 million that Qian Dan had calculated in the end, he chuckled with a hint of mockery. "Why are you laughing like that?" Wu Jingjing asked, puzzled. Lan Kai waved his hand and said with a smile, "I'm laughing because this reporter thinks too highly of himself. He thinks that he has exposed some amazing news, but in reality, what he calculated is not even a fraction of Brother Yang's net worth. The money that Brother Yang has spent on that piece of land in Jinling City is already more than 600 million renminbi." Wu Jingjing was suddenly enlightened and said with a smile, "I know. If you include the shares of Sahara Online Mall, Yang Yi's net worth might scare them to death." That's right. If Brother Yang reveals his net worth, he will definitely crush those young talents who are usually bragging about in the reports. Lan Kai said, giving a thumbs up. "Don't mock me, you two. No matter how much net worth I have, it can't compare to Big Brother Lan. Besides, people are afraid of being famous just as pigs are fattened. We should keep a low profile and live a good life." Yang Yi smiled slightly. "I think so too. It's all the same whether you have a lot of money or not," Murphy said with the same tone as Yang Yi. Chapter 849. Not everyone knew about the relationship between Yang Yi and the Sahara Online Mall, as well as his relationship with the Backwave technology company behind micro-broadcasting, and the Mantis Shrimp Animation Production Company that he had a stake in. The equity distribution behind these technology companies was strictly confidential. Moreover, Yang Yi was a hands-off boss. Even in those companies, other than the higher-ups, few employees knew about Yang Yi's existence. Therefore, when most people saw Qian Dan's news, their reaction would not be as disdainful as Lan Kai. Instead, they would be surprised. Qian Dan's report was reasonable, and the readers could match it with their own memories. Yang Yi had indeed sold the copyrights, invested in these movies, and created these 2 programs. Therefore, they would basically agree with Qian Dan's judgment. Yang Yi had a net worth of almost 600 million yuan. Even if it was just a mere 600 million yuan, it was enough to shock many people. How amazing was this? In just 2 or 3 years, he went from a poor boy living in a shanty town to a billionaire with a net worth of 600 million yuan. This story was too inspirational. Under Yang Yi's micro-broadcasting, the fans were already boiling. They left messages and comments asking if Yang Yi had really earned so much. Of course, Yang Yi would not respond to these comments. However, even if he did not respond, the fans knew how amazing Yang Yi was. Their admiration for him increased day by day. "You are indeed my favorite idol. When I see your deeds, I feel that my heart is full of positive energy. I feel that as long as I work as hard as you, I can get promoted and earn a lot of money. I can also marry a rich and beautiful woman one day." Relying on his own brain to make money. Although Yang Dada's qualifications are shallow, compared to others, he is definitely the person who earns the most from copyrights. "I am now like Yang Yi. I don't have much savings. I work hard in the big city and live in a shanty town. However, I have a dream to be like Yang Yi. I believe that one day, I can also earn 600 million yuan. Of course, there were also very naughty fellows who called him father-in-law every day. They even kept up with the times and commented in a variety of ways. I'm kneeling to father-in-law. You don't have to work so hard to earn money to buy a dowry for my wife. If I don't take it, I'll be looking down on you. If I take it, how embarrassing would that be? Normally, such mantis shrimps would be beaten to death. Qiandan's report on Yang Yi was an inspirational chicken soup for the soul for many people who wanted to embark on the path of creation. In the Wuhu district of Jiang City, Ewing also saw the report. Many women might be envious of Murphy's good luck. She started out as a stubborn stone and managed to discover a diamond mine with a limitless future. However, what Ewing paid attention to was the report on Yang Yi's journey to the pinnacle of his life. Yang Yi's success is like a fairy tale. Everything started from the midsummer 3 years ago. Jiang City was blooming with flowers and peach blossoms. Soldiers' Assault quietly appeared on the Chiyua Literature Network. That was also the beginning of this legend. Ewing liked Qiandan's description very much. It was a simple description, but it seemed to be magnificent, making people's hearts surge. He also started to succeed by writing books. Ewing thought to herself. She knew more about Yang Yi. For example, Yang Yi was actually the boss of Sahara Publishing House. She also knew a lot about Yang Yi's deeds when he started from scratch. However, every time she read it, Ewing could not help but feel encouraged. Can you be as successful as him? Ewing murmured softly as she caressed the manuscript in her hands. She had already finished writing and was just finishing up. She might be asking about the manuscript, or she might be asking about herself. But this was not important. What was important was that Ewing was eager to see herself succeed. If I succeed, it proves that I can also take care of Xiao Wei well by myself. Who would dare to laugh at me for being a single mother? Yu Ying's heart was ignited with an inexplicable flame. Women are independent. What's the use of having a man? Of course, Ewing was a woman after all. After a while, her thoughts became emotional again. If this book can be published, when I get the first month's money, I will resign and concentrate on writing at home to make more time to accompany Xiao Wei. Working and writing at the same time. I'm so tired. My dear, how true do you think this report is? He can earn hundreds of millions just by writing a few books and a few songs? On the big bed of a luxurious villa in the suburbs of Shanghai, Li Manman, who was wearing silk pajamas, pushed the man who was resting with his eyes closed beside her and asked softly. This man who looked to be in his 50s was obviously not as energetic as before. Li Manman was so bored that she played with her phone after work. Coincidentally, she also saw the news report about Yang Yi and couldn't help but cry out. The man took his glasses from the bedside and put them on. He squinted his eyes and looked at the report on the phone for a while. His movements were slow and leisurely. After taking off his glasses, he snorted softly and said, "What? You see that he has hundreds of millions and is young and handsome. You want to fall in love with someone else?" Li Manman's body trembled. She hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, "What? It's not like you don't know. I hate him so much that I gnash my teeth. Isn't this because I can't bear to see him doing well? If one day he goes bankrupt and I see this kind of news, I'll really be happy. My dear, I only love you. Although you don't only love me," Li Manman said faintly after being intimate with the other party for a while. The man obviously didn't want to talk about the topic brought out by Li Manman. He raised his chin and motioned to Li Manman's phone. There's basically nothing wrong with what the report said. This surnamed Yang has a bit of standard. Global Pictures' Su Zhongwei also suffered a loss in his hands, but in the end he still couldn't do anything to him. Old Jean, you say, how can he earn so much? I also know a few creators. Although they all have a bit of money, they can't earn as much as him. Li Manman said while drawing circles on the man's chest. Jin Yuanhe was the boss of Chuhan Management Company where Li Manman worked. Of course, Jin Yuanhe's main business was in real estate. Chuhan Management Company was just a cage that he bought to raise Li Manman, this canary. In this world, creators can earn more money than poor working stars like you. Of course, They don't have the limelight as you stars. Jin Yuanhe patted Li Manman's red face and humphed. Of course there aren't many creators like Yang Yi, who wrote a few popular novels and filmed a successful movie. In addition, if you can make those 2 programs, you can also have a net worth of hundreds of millions. How can I do that? Li Manman charmingly smiled. She knew the man's mentality and deliberately showed weakness. I can only follow a capable man like you and drink some soup. Jin Yuanhe revealed a satisfied smile. It's good that you know. But you have to give me an idea. Recently he provoked me again. I want to make him uncomfortable. Li Manman said coquettishly. Chapter 850. In the blink of an eye, it was already late September. It seemed to be an autumn rain. The next day, the weather in Jiangqing had already become cool. Yang Yi was already prepared. He called over Xixi, who was actively putting on her socks, and asked her to put on the little suit jacket of her school uniform. Papa, there's a bow here. Xixi grabbed a red ribbon and asked her father to tie it to her collar. Yang Yi had tried to put it on her once before, but the little girl was obsessed with it. She thought it would look better this way, so she wore it every day. However, Yang Yi liked Xixi's little black suit jacket more. After putting it on, the little girl looked extraordinarily beautiful and elegant. Of course, if she didn't let her 2 little hands sway by her side like a duckling, her temperament would have been more gentle and quiet. Xixi, I heard from Papa that you have an exam today, right? Murphy asked her daughter with concern as she sat on the sofa and pressed Tong Tong's little, but with one hand to prevent him from crawling away. Yes, we have an exam. Xixi just remembered. She scratched her head and said in a daze. It was a unit test. However, the little girl obviously didn't have any special reaction to the exam. She even related the exam to her interview at Huijia Primary School, and felt that it should be something as simple as that. Before she tried the exam, Xixi was very nervous and flustered. However, after she tried it, Xixi wasn't afraid anymore. Was the exam just chatting with the teacher? What was so difficult about that? Moreover, Xixi didn't have the concept of exam results. She felt that exams were just exams, and the results didn't seem to have much of an impact. This might also have something to do with the special way Yang Yi and Murphy taught Xixi. They never talked about the importance of exam results in front of Xixi. Even though Cici had achieved very good results in the interview and received a very high evaluation from the invigilator, Yang Yi only played it down. At most, he simply praised her with a few words. Now that her mother had mentioned it, Cici, who was skipping to school to play with her friends, finally thought of the exam. Of course, she didn't become anxious. Then you have to work hard today. Murphy raised a palm and smiled. Come on, give me 5. Mom wishes you success. Hee. Xixi smiled and ran over in her pink slippers. She reached out and patted her mother's palm. After her small hand clapped with her big hand, she asked happily, Mom, what do you mean by success? Oh, you have to ask your father about that. Murphy was embarrassed. She only knew how to use those idioms, but she didn't know how to explain them. Nervousness was actually contagious. Although Xixi didn't take the exam seriously at home, when she arrived at school, Xixi noticed that her classmates were a little uncomfortable. She couldn't help but become a little nervous. Lu Xiaoyu frowned worriedly. Usually when the 2 girls met, they would talk about a lot of things. However, today she sat there holding a pen and didn't seem to be in the mood to talk. Little Yu, or why are you unhappy? Xixi tilted her head and asked with concern. Because there's an exam today. It turned out that Lu Xiaoyu wasn't in the mood to talk. She was just too nervous. Now that Xixi had started, she finally found an outlet to vent her emotions. Xixi, I'm scared. Aya, what are you scared of? Xixi asked, puzzled. I'm scared that if I don't do well in the exam, my father will be angry. Lu Xiaoyu pursed her lips and said softly, he will say, Little Yu, or you don't study hard and don't do well in the exam. Then he won't let me watch TV. He won't let you watch TV? Xixi looked at her little friend in surprise. That's right, he used to be like this. Lu Xiaoyu pouted and nodded her head vigorously. Lu Xiaoyu's kindergarten education in the past did have exams. Therefore, Lu Xiaoyu had a deeper understanding of these things. When it came to exams, she became nervous. She looked at her little friend with concern. After a while, she thought of herself. If she didn't do well in the exam, would her father not let her watch TV? If that was the case, not being able to watch TV would be terrible. The little girl couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She sat in her seat and let her imagination run wild. After the morning reading class, Lu Xianxian walked into the classroom with a stack of test papers. She looked at Teacher Lu on the podium, who was calling for the group leaders of each group to come up and help distribute the test papers. This sense of urgency in her heart became more and more obvious. As a teacher, Lu Xianxian was relatively patient. She knew that many of the children were taking the exam for the first time. Therefore, she spent a long time explaining the process of the exam to them. In the end, she looked at the children below the podium, whose faces were tense. She smiled and said, "Students, this is just a small unit test. These are all very simple questions. Don't be nervous." I don't want to take the exam." She heard Wang Lele not far from the seat in front of her. He was muttering in grievance. His eyes were red, as if he had been crying. She was in a trance. It was as if she had returned to the day of the entrance exam. Many of her little friends were also crying. However, today was not so bad. Perhaps it was because they had grown up. Most of the students were just nervous. For example, Lan Xian was obviously much calmer. She didn't have the thought of crying like before. After the test papers were distributed, Teacher Lu Xianxian stood on the podium and read the questions to the children, afraid that they couldn't understand the words. She also followed the teacher's reading and skimmed through the test paper in advance. It didn't seem difficult. There weren't many questions on the test paper. There were 8 major questions and 1 additional question. Basically, all of the questions were related to counting. For example, the first big question was to show a picture and ask the children to count the number of apples, bunnies, flowers, birds, goldfish, and so on. Then, fill in the corresponding numbers in the brackets behind the picture below. After all, she and the others had only learned counting in the first unit. It hadn't been expanded to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. However, don't underestimate counting. This seemingly simple knowledge point could be given different difficulties and different logic by the teacher, who came up with the questions. For example, the first few questions were simple counting and filling in the blanks. Later on, there were connecting questions, connecting different pictures with the same number together. There were also logical judgment questions and so on. The most difficult one was the additional question. It gave a picture of a boy, a girl, and different amounts of water left in the same cup next to them. The question was, the boy and the girl drank the same amount of water in a cup. With so much water left, who drank the most water just now? In the eyes of adults, this question should be very simple. As long as they understood the question correctly, they could solve it. However, for children who didn't know how to turn their brains, this question was a bit complicated. If they couldn't turn their brains around, many children might subconsciously choose the boy with the most water in the cup. However, these questions weren't difficult for Xi and Lan Xian. These 2 girls, although they didn't learn too profound mathematical formulas when they were in Springfield kindergarten, under the guidance of the teacher, their logical thinking ability was trained and their brains turned faster. After Teacher Lu Xianxian read the questions and finished reading the additional questions, Xi thought of the answer. I know how to do it. I'll tell you. It's because Lily didn't have much water left. That's why Lily drank a lot. That's why she had so little water left. The little girl looked at the test paper and happily said to Lu Xiaoyu, who was next to her. Lu Xiaoyu looked at her deskmate in confusion. She didn't know if she still couldn't understand the solution Xi told her, or if she was confused by Xi's operation. Could she tell others the answer? No, but Xi didn't know anything about exam discipline. But coincidentally, Lu Xianxian was standing not far from Xi's row. Chapter 851. After Lu Xianxian finished reading the questions, the classroom was relatively quiet except for some of the children. At this time, Xi opened her mouth to speak. Her movements were more obvious and were caught by the teacher immediately. It was actually the genius girl with a pair of beautiful big eyes that no one could forget. When Lu Xianxian looked over, the little girl was still happily telling the answers to her desk mate. Of course, Lu Xianxian also heard that she was indeed very smart. The answers she said were correct. However, passing the answers during the exam was cheating. Fortunately, Lu Xianxian also saw that she didn't do it on purpose. Who would dare to speak so obviously when cheating? Cough cough. Lu Xianxian walked over and put her hand on Xi's shoulder. She whispered, "Yangxi, don't whisper to other students. During the exam, all the questions must be completed independently." Xi looked up at the teacher in confusion. She didn't know that she had violated the rules. You can't tell others your answers like just now. Do you understand? Although Lu Xuanxuan's voice was still gentle, her expression was a little serious. At this time, an appropriate amount of seriousness could let Xi realize the seriousness of the problem. Xi finally understood. The little girl lowered her head in embarrassment and nodded gently. She pouted and said in a weak voice, "Teacher Lu, I know I was wrong. It's okay. You didn't understand the first time. Now that you know you were wrong, just don't do it in the future." Lu Xianxian put down her hand and wiped the seriousness on her face. She smiled and said, "Okay, go and do the questions." However, Xi realized that she had done something wrong this time. Although the teacher didn't continue to blame her, a heavy sense of guilt had already spread in her heart. During the exam, even though Xi was still looking at the paper seriously, her small hand still holding the pencil as she wrote the Arabic numerals stroke by stroke, it was obvious that her expression was not as excited and happy as before. The little girl frowned slightly. Her beautiful big eyes were filled with worry at this moment. The corners of her mouth were slightly downwards. It was hard to tell if she was feeling wronged or sad. What was interesting was that Xi, who was frowning, was not alone. Many other children were also frowning like her, but they felt that the questions were difficult. There were even a few students who had a poor foundation in mathematics or were usually mischievous in class. When they flipped to the difficult problems at the back, they were confused and did not know how to solve them. They were so anxious that they scratched their ears and cheeks and looked left and right, wanting to see how others did it. Lu Xianxian walked behind Xi, knocked on the table in the next row, and warned softly, "Chen Yuxuan, you can't copy other people's answers." Lu Xuanxuan's tone was even harsher than before. She was also prescribing the right medicine for the problem. Xi was more obedient, and it was also her first offense, so she treated her gently. However, when it came to Chen Yuxuan and the other boys who were usually more mischievous and thick-skinned, Lu Xuanxuan's tone was much harsher. Xi subconsciously looked back, and just happened to see Chen Yuxuan withdraw his gaze from her paper. Sure enough, he was thick-skinned. This little boy didn't have any sense of guilt like Cici after being scolded by the teacher. He just lowered his head regretfully. He regretted that he didn't see Cici's answer clearly just now. "It's okay, just ignore him." Lu Xianxian recovered her gentleness. She smiled and asked Xi to turn her head back. She said, "Continue to do the questions. Just cover the paper properly." Xi's mood at school was very complicated. She blamed herself, felt wronged, and felt sad. At this moment in the studio's recording studio, Murphy's mood was not much better. Today, Yang Yi took out 3 songs prepared for her new album, 12 songs, so it was better to take them out one by one. But when she looked at the lyrics, Murphy felt very sad. The first song was He Doesn't Love Me. Yes, it was the song that Mo Wenwei sang while laughing and crying at her solo concert in a very popular video in Yang Yi's previous life. He doesn't love me. When we hold hands, he is too cold. When we hug, we don't get close enough. This song was considered by many as the best lovelorn song. Every line of the lyrics was full of sadness. Murphy was an extremely emotional person. Looking at these lines of lyrics, a fictitious scene emerged in her mind one after another. Yang Yi and her relationship gradually drifted apart. Originally, they held hands, hugged and kissed intimately every day, but now, they became less and less intimate. The second song was The Most Familiar Stranger. In Yang Yi's previous life, this song was the same as He Doesn't Love Me. Although it was released at the end of the last century, it was popular regardless of era and age. Even after 20 years, it was still widely sung. That popularity even gave people the misconception that it had only been a few years since it became popular. The lyrics of this song were also sad. Compared with He Doesn't Love Me, the way it expressed its feelings was different. It was not as direct, bitter, and strong as the lyrics of He Doesn't Love Me. What it expressed was a kind of cold pain. We have become the most familiar strangers in the world. In the future, we will have our own twists and turns, and each of us will be sad. Because they had loved each other deeply, they were the most familiar with each other. But because they did not contact each other after breaking up, even if they were the most familiar with each other, they were just strangers. From now on, we will not have any contact with each other. No matter who is brilliant, who is decadent, it has nothing to do with you. It was hard to tell whether this song was written about heartlessness or the hidden reluctance behind the heartlessness. It was so cold that it made people tremble, but the sweetness that could be associated with it was also heart-wrenching. When Mo Fei saw these lyrics, she couldn't help but imagine some of these scenes, corresponding to the love between her and Yang Yi at this moment. When she thought of the separation that would happen, the discomfort in her heart was like the shackles of a volcano being torn apart, erupting all at once. In the past, when Yang Yi had taken out Listen to the Sea, Murphy had not been as sad as she was now, so Yang Yi had not yet realized the impact of his two songs. He even said to Murphy with interest, "My favorite is still The Most Familiar Stranger. It is very interesting when played with the saxophone. Let me play it for you." Yang Yi took the saxophone from the instrument rack next to him and began to play. This was a slow lyric song. The saxophone did not play much in the original accompaniment. It only appeared for a moment in the prelude. Of course, that short part was amazing enough. However, this song was originally suitable for playing with the saxophone. Yang Yi had even dug out the complete saxophone score. Mo Fei opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but stopped on second thought. She looked at Yang Yi, who was playing enthusiastically, and the look in her eyes was a little gloomy, and her mouth was slightly pursed. Her expression was exactly the same as Cece's. After all, the power of genes was limitless. However, since they were both biological children, Tong Tong was not as sentimental as his mother. Listening to his father play the saxophone, Tong Tong was not affected by the melancholy and sad music at all. Not only did he not feel sad, but the little boy even grabbed the railing of the crib and excitedly climbed up. Although he could not stand steadily, when he saw his father shaking his head and winking at him, he also beamed with joy. The atmosphere in the recording studio was very strange. Tong Tong's father was also affected. The two of them were silly and seemed to be very happy. On the other hand, the atmosphere on Murphy's side was a little gloomy and oppressive. Chapter 852. There were people who used phrases like deep and calm, soft and sad, and like an echo in the night, to describe the characteristics of the saxophone. The emotions contained in The Most Familiar Stranger seemed to be squashed and elongated under the saxophone's performance. It was like silk, entangling people's hearts. Although Yang Yi played the saxophone to tease his son at the beginning, he couldn't bear to blaspheme this piece of music, so he continued to play it affectionately. Especially when he played the line "each sorrowful," he used a long, continuous trill to raise the pitch like an electric current, as if it could penetrate people's souls. Murphy closed her eyes and immersed herself in the sad music of the saxophone. But even with her eyes closed, she couldn't suppress her bursting emotions. 2 lines of tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Yang Yi had just stood up from the wind and turned his head around when he saw this scene. "What's going on? Why is she crying?" Yang Yi immediately stopped playing, and the saxophone's voice stopped abruptly. Instead, he asked with concern, "Honey, what's wrong? Why are you crying all of a sudden? Don't tell me you were moved by the song I played?" Yang Yi joked. "Did I play it that well? I'm not good at this kind of thing." Murphy rubbed her eyes and looked at the guy who didn't understand her feelings. She sat there sullenly. Her creased eyebrows, wrinkled nose, and slightly puffed pink cheeks were written all over her face. "I'm very sad," and I'm waiting for you to comfort me. Of course, Yang-yi could roughly guess the source of Murphy's emotions. He put down the saxophone and sat on the coffee table in front of Murphy. He looked at her and smiled gently. Didn't I tell you that these songs were just my imagination? Don't think too much about it, okay? They don't express my true feelings. They're just emotions that I created out of thin air to write sad songs. How could Murphy not understand this? It wasn't as if Murphy didn't know if Yang-yi had a change of heart. However, she was a woman who needed a sense of security when it came to relationships. She couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. She pursed her lips and said with a nasal voice, I know. It's just that when I read these lyrics, I can't help but think of a lot of messy things. What nonsense? Yang-yi asked. It's like you fell in love with someone else. Just like what you wrote in this song. I don't know when it started, but you didn't love me anymore. Murphy said. Her heart ached and her eyes turned red again. Yang-yi's heart ached when he saw this. He simply sat beside Murphy and pulled her into his arms. She straddled his thighs. The two of them faced each other, and were even closer to each other. Murphy's face turned red from Yang-yi's teasing. Not to mention that she didn't know where the bad feelings from before disappeared. She turned her head to look at Tong Tong, who was in the crib. Tong Tong was staring at them with wide eyes. Although the sofa armrest blocked some of her view, Murphy was still a little embarrassed. Our son is watching, Murphy said shyly. Don't worry about him. Yang-yi reached out and pinched Murphy's nose. He laughed and said, Look at you. You can make yourself look so embarrassed by letting your imagination run wild. Aren't you a big idiot? Say it yourself. You're still bullying me. Murphy realized that she couldn't persuade Yang-yi, so she didn't care anymore. She revealed her true nature, and cried out with an aggrieved expression. When did I bully you? Yang-yi laughed. You pinched my nose. Murphy said angrily. I didn't even use any strength. I just pinched it lightly. How can that be called pinching? I don't care. Usually when you feel sorry for me you kiss me. Why would you pinch me? Murphy couldn't say anything else. After a while, she was finally released. Her lips were red and translucent, and her face was as red as snow. Although she was still glaring at Yang-yi angrily, her eyes, which were filled with both joy and anger, seemed to be about to burst with charm. Don't let your imagination run wild. We're fine. Yang-yi hugged Murphy, and let her head rest on his chest. His lips were warm for a while before he spoke slowly. Then what about in the future? Murphy was still affected by her imagination, and muttered softly. Of course we'll continue to be fine. Writing songs is just writing songs. It has nothing to do with reality. Yang-yi said softly. After getting the answer she wanted, Murphy's head rubbed against Yang-yi's chest, and didn't say anything. Let me read you a poem. Do you remember the last time I told you about forcing myself to say my worries for a new poem? Yang-yi asked with a smile. I don't remember. Murphy replied softly. This is a poem written by an ancient person called Xian Chiji. The full text is like this. Young people don't know the taste of worries. Love to go up the stairs. Forcing myself to say my worries for a new poem. Yang-yi recited with a cadence. You seem to have read one more line. Murphy sat up and said doubtfully. No, the poem is like this. There's another line below. Now I know the taste of worries. Wanting to say it, but not wanting to say it. Wanting to say it, but not wanting to say it's cold autumn. Yang-yi said while shaking his head. Murphy couldn't help but chuckle. Cold autumn. This sentence sounds so casual. It's like talking. That's right. What this poem wants to say is that when you were young, you didn't know what worries were. You liked to go to the top of a tall building and look into the distance, as if you could understand the taste of worries. And when you go to the top and look into the distance, you don't know how to worry. In order to write a good work, you can force yourself to say that you're worried. Now that you've tasted the taste of worries, you can't say it even if you want to. You can only say it's cold autumn. It's like saying normal words. There's no rhyme at all. Yang-yi interpreted a bunch of words before looking into Murphy's eyes with a smile and said softly, The songs I'm writing now are originally to forcefully describe this kind of sad emotion. But just like this poem said, If a person really reaches this sad moment, I'm afraid they won't be able to write a work to express this emotion. I understand. I'm just a little affected by the emotions of these songs. I suddenly feel sad in my heart. Murphy grabbed Yang Yi's hand and said with her head down, "But now that I'm by your side, I know that I didn't lose you. I'm very happy. I know that it's not like that." Dang dang dang. The sound next to them interrupted Yang Yi and Murphy's thoughts. They turned their heads to look. At the crib, Tong Tong saw that his parents were ignoring him, so he was too lazy to continue looking. The little guy grabbed the toy in the crib, the plastic forklift that he liked, and rhythmically knocked on the crib's guardrail. It was as if he was about to break out of prison. Yang Yi and Murphy retracted their gazes and looked at each other with a smile. Murphy also got down from Yang Yi's lap and went to take care of her little son. Chapter 853. If you don't think these songs are good, why don't we change them? We can sing something more relaxing. What do you think? Murphy bent down beside the crib to tidy up Tong Tong's clothes. Just as she was about to carry him out for a spin, Yang Yi leaned against the wall and asked softly, "No way." Murphy rolled her eyes. "The songs are fine. Why can't they be good? Didn't you say that they were too sad? They are sad. These songs are too sad." Yang Yi laughed. "Since you don't like them, why force yourself to sing them? It's not like I can't find other songs for you." Murphy blinked innocently at Yang Yi and said, "Who told you that I don't like these songs? You like them?" Yang Yi was a little confused. "Yeah, I heard you play the saxophone just now. The melody was so beautiful. How can I not like such good songs?" Mo Fei carried Tianxian out. The little guy grabbed his mother's clothes with one hand, but he was very playful. He reached out to his father with the other hand. "Baba." Tong Tong waved his little hand. It seemed that he was more interested in his father, who was just playing with him. Yang Yi took Tong Tong, but he was still confused and continued to ask Murphy, "But you just said that they are sad." "Sad is one thing, but liking them is another. Although I feel sad when I see the lyrics, I can't help but like them. It should be very interesting to sing them." Murphy giggled. When she saw Yang Yi's dumbfounded expression, she said, "Aya, you don't understand women. The more they are sad, the more they like it. Isn't that right?" In those years, who was the one who watched those tragic dramas from the neighboring countries with snot and tears running down their faces, but loved them so much? Women. Yang Yi was a little speechless. "Okay, as long as you like it. I was worried that you wouldn't like this type of songs because I wanted to create a sad special for you." "Sure. However, you have to teach me these 3 songs first. I only listened to the song, The Most Familiar Stranger." Murphy's 2 hands pressed on the low cabinet as she excitedly said to Yang Yi. Yang Yi smiled and said, "Well, which one do you want to listen to first?" "This one." The lyrics of Qianqian K song are also very sad, but compared to the others, it's a little lighter and not as straightforward. "Let's go from shallow to deep and take it slow," Murphy murmured. "This song is more interesting. The female voice has a female voice, and the male voice has a male voice." Yang Yi recalled several versions of the song that he had heard in his previous life. After pondering for a while, he said, "I'll sing the male voice for you. We can study the female voice later. But for the male version, I'll have to play the drums." For the male version, Yang Yi naturally had to imitate Zhang Guorong's singing style. "Then I'll help you hold your son." Murphy was interested and carried Tong Tong over. "Hey, Baba." The little boy was unwilling. He hadn't started playing with his father yet. When he was in his mother's arms, he pouted his small mouth and made a fuss. Fortunately, Yang Yi sat in front of the drum set and played a trick of twirling the stick with his fingertips, attracting little Momo's attention. The little boy forgot his opinion of his mother and opened his big round eyes, looking at his father in surprise. It seemed that he was shocked by his father's performance. It seemed that he was using his little head to try to understand what his father was doing. Yang Yi teased his son, then he became serious and began to sing the first few lines. Slowly looking back, the night that belonged to each other. Hong Hong is still you, the sun in my heart. It was actually a Cantonese song. Murphy felt that the sentence structure of these lyrics was a bit special, but she didn't have a deep understanding of language, so she couldn't tell which language the sentence order was from. However, a classic was a classic. Yang Yi only sang the first few lines, and Murphy was attracted by the charm of the song. She stood aside with Tong Tong in her arms, looking at him eagerly, forgetting to sit down. Zhang Guorong's singing was able to move countless people. In fact, his singing wasn't the main reason. Even if his singing was top-notch, the key was that he could control his voice with emotion. This was something that many imitators couldn't do. Controlling the voice with emotion referred to giving a strong emotion to the voice. It was rare that it wasn't pretentious, and it was rare that it was just right. With the addition of his singing, he could easily express his talent and his sincere feelings. This kind of song would naturally move the audience. Yang Yi couldn't reach Zhang Guorong's level for the time being. However, with his wide vocal range, solid singing, and hard imitation, Yang Yi could sing with a little feeling of an older brother. It's a pity that we're about to be separated, so I can only gaze deeply at this moment. For example, in this sentence, the slight pause between this moment and gaze deeply at, as well as the change of emotion, Murphy showed an infatuated expression as she listened. At this time, Yang Yi hit the drum, as if he was using the rapid drumming to bring in the chorus of the climax. Even if there are thousands of songs in the future, floating on my road in the distance, even if there are thousands of stars in the evening, brighter than tonight's moon. Yang Yi hit the drum according to the rhythm and sang with emotion. Only he, relying on his vigorous aura and extraordinary body coordination, was able to beat the drum and sing without being affected at the same time. However, Murphy didn't think too much about these meaningless things. She looked at Yang Yi with blurred eyes, and was almost intoxicated by Yang Yi's cadence at this moment. Yang Yi also looked at her affectionately, and with that very seductive singing voice he hummed, "Can't compare to this night's beauty, can't wash away my thoughts tonight, because you're singing with me tonight." Murphy bit her lower lip, and her cheeks turned slightly red. No one was willing to sing only half of this song. Although it was just a demonstration, Yang Yi still sang the whole song. In the end, he even hummed the last part of the song under the steady drumming. "How is it? This song is good, right?" Yang Yi still wanted to continue singing, so he smiled and said to Murphy. However, Murphy rolled her eyes at him and pretended to be unhappy. "What's wrong?" Yang Yi asked with a smile. "You're so bad," Murphy said angrily. "Such a good song, I can't wait to hear it, but you actually bewitched me and said that you would change it to another song." Hey, how is that bewitching? Was your language taught by a PE teacher?" Yang Yi laughed. He knew that Murphy was just playing with him. Sometimes, the young couple quarreled, which was also a reflection of the fun in life. "Yes, I was bewitched. Your language was taught by a PE teacher." While the two of them were bickering, Tong Tong became very interested in the drum set that his father was playing. He started to blabber and finally attracted his father's attention. "Why, you want to play?" Yang Yi laughed and handed a drumstick to the little guy. The drumstick was not heavy, so Tong Tong could hold it. Moreover, his ability to imitate was beyond his parents' expectations. Murphy carried him to the drum set, and the little guy excitedly waved his little arms and started to hit the drum. Hee. The little guy was so happy that he even turned his head to look at his father and grinned, as if to say, "Dad, look, I can hit the drum too." Chapter 854. When Shishi came back at night, she didn't talk to Lan Xian in the car like before. The little girl was in a very low mood. However, she didn't want to say it in front of Lan Xian. Yang Yi waited until she got home before asking. I was scolded by Teacher Lu." Shishi leaned in her mother's arms and finally opened her mouth. Yang Yi put Shishi's small bag on the table and asked puzzledly, "Why did Teacher Lu scold you? Is it because you didn't do well in the math exam?" "It's okay. If you didn't do well, we'll work harder next time. Don't take it to heart." Murphy touched her daughter's little head and comforted her with a smile. "It's just an exam. It doesn't mean anything." Shishi shook her head. Her little hand grabbed the buttons of her mother's clothes and played with them unconsciously. She pouted and said, "No, Teacher Lu, Teacher Lu scolded me because I did something wrong. What did you do wrong? How did Teacher Lu scold you? Yang Yi asked. He was actually quite sensitive to the word scolding his daughter had said. In his heart, he thought that this Mr. Lu had said something unpleasant to make Cece so upset. I don't even know. I said that Lily drank the most water and told little fishy, so Teacher Lu scolded me. Shishi's memory was very good. Moreover, this incident left a deep impression on her, so she could repeat what Teacher Lu said. Teacher Lu said, Yangshi, don't whisper to other students. During the exam, all the questions have to be completed independently. Yang Yi and Murphy asked for some details and understood the whole story. This isn't scolding you. Yang Yi breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said to Shishi. Teacher Lu was just reminding you. That's right. You can't cheat in the exam. You can't copy other people's answers or tell other people your answers. Murphy said seriously. Shishi didn't cheat. Yang Yi defended his daughter and pulled her over. He looked at her and said, because Shishi said that she didn't know the rules of the examination room, right? Shishi, if you knew that the teacher wouldn't allow this, you wouldn't have told little you, or the answer, right? Shishi looked into her father's eyes and nodded vigorously. Shishi didn't like the word cheating that her mother mentioned. She pouted and tried her best to explain to her father. I didn't tell them after I found out that Chen Yuxuan was peeking at my test paper from behind. Then the teacher found out, so I hid the test paper and didn't want to show it to him. That's great. You see, you're still a good kid. Admit your mistakes and correct them, right? Besides, your original intention wasn't to tell little you your answers. You just didn't know the rules of the examination room. So the teacher was just reminding you, not scolding you. Yang Yi said gently. Shishi leaned into her father's arms and grabbed his fingers. After Shishi fell asleep, Yang Yi returned to the second bedroom. Tong Tong was also asleep. Murphy laid out a yoga mat on the floor and jumped rope. Why are you exercising in the middle of the night? You'll sweat later and have to take a shower. Yang Yi asked with a smile. Moreover, little Gua doesn't run at night anymore. She runs in the morning. Could it be that she was stimulated by little Gua's weight loss? You're not fat now. This afternoon, Yang Yi and Mo Fei also went to the coffee shop. It had to be said that under Ding Xiang's treatment, Guazi had indeed lost a lot of weight. Although he still looked fat, his belly had been cut down, and his whole person had become much more flexible. You're the one who's losing weight. Murphy panted and said angrily. However, she didn't tell Yang Yi why she was jumping rope. Yang Yi was confused as he watched her jump for a while. She only stopped when she was sweating profusely. Mo Fei raised her eyelids, glanced at Yang Yi shyly, and bit her lower lip. Then, she took off the coat she was wearing. Gulp. Yang Yi's eyes widened and he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Murphy wasn't wearing a top or sports bra under her jacket. Instead, it was hanging from two thin straps. Of course, the clothes weren't the main point. The main point was that Murphy had sweated a lot from the exercise earlier. Her skin was smooth and moist, and the sweat on her neck and collarbone had gathered into large beads of sweat. The beads of sweat flowed along the undulating lines of her breasts. In professional terms, it was called the saddle. The beads of sweat slowly gathered and flowed into the deep ravine. Murphy was usually very conservative. After all, they had been married for a long time. Sometimes, when Yang Yi teased her, she would blush. However, today, she seemed to have been stimulated by the lyrics of a few songs. She had decided that even if she had to be thick-skinned, she would teach Yang Yi a lesson. Murphy walked up gracefully with her catwalk. Her face was rosy, and she looked at Yang Yi charmingly. She opened her red lips and exhaled. I want to practice my lower back. Can you help me? Yang Yi's gaze was attracted by the beads of sweat. His mouth was so dry that he couldn't speak. Of course, at this moment, how could he refuse? Yang Yi smiled and reached out to hold Murphy's hips. He said softly, come on, bend down slowly and spread your legs a little more. Hey, which family's lower back needs to spread their legs so widely? He. Chapter 855. Next, every student whose name has been called by the teacher Please come up and get your test paper. As for the other students whose names have not been called, please stay in your seat and don't move. The next day, the first class was Chinese class. She, like the other children, sat in her seat and looked eagerly at teacher Li Rulin on the podium. Perhaps because they were about to know their results, they were very nervous. In today's class, these little fellows were very obedient and didn't make any noise. Each and every one of them sat up straight and looked at the teacher attentively. The only time there was such a uniform scene in the classroom could be traced back to the beginning of school. At that time, they were more obedient. After 3 weeks, the little fellows were very familiar with the new environment, new classmates, and new teachers. Each and every one of them revealed their mischievous nature. Wang Lele 92 points. Lan Xian, Chen Yuxuan, Chao Rulin 98 points. Li Rulin didn't read out the names according to their scores. Instead, she called out the names from top to bottom, and let these children go up and get their test papers. She also didn't read out all the children's scores. Out of consideration for the children who did poorly, she only read out the scores of those who scored more than 90 points. However, because the quality of the students was high and the questions were relatively simple, most of the children scored more than 90 points. There were also a few who scored 100 points. Even if their scores weren't read out, their scores wouldn't be too bad. For example, Lan Xian scored 88 points. She was just 1 point away from being read out by the teacher. It was also a kind of honor to be read out by the teacher. Looking at Chao Rulin, who scored 98 points, the bespectacled girl's face was glowing. She walked to the podium with her chest puffed out to receive her test paper. She looked at Chao Rulin enviously, while waiting for her test paper. Lu Xiaoyu 90 points. She turned her head and saw her desk mate happily running up to get her test paper. She couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Why isn't it my turn yet? The little girl's mind was in a mess. One moment she was worried, and the next moment she was sad. She was worried about her gains and losses, and her confidence and patience were slowly being ground away. However, just as she was letting her imagination run wild, Lu Xiaoyu had just sat down beside her. Just as she was happily about to show her paper to Shi, the teacher on the stage read, Andong 95 points. Yang Shi 100 points. Now the teacher has already read out 2 students who scored 100 points. In this unit test, the students in our class did very well in Chinese. She didn't pay attention to what teacher Li Rulin said after that. When her name was called, the little girl raised her head in surprise. When the teacher read out her score, the little girl's eyes were filled with surprise. You scored 100 points. Lu Xiaoyu was so surprised that her little mouth turned round. She turned her head and looked at Shi as if she was looking at a big monster. She thought that it was already very good for her to score 90 points. In fact, many people scored more than 90 points because the teacher read out their scores. The little girl had an illusion. But she didn't expect Shi's results to be even better. Of course, at this time, she had to go up and get the test paper first. She happily ran up to the stage with small steps with smiling eyes. She stretched out her hands and took the test paper from the teacher. However, Li Rulin didn't treat Shi like the other students. She only gave a few words of encouragement, and let Shi go down. She smiled and said, Yang Shi, wait a moment. She walked out from the podium and gently put her hand on Shi's shoulder. She smiled and said to the students in the class, Yang Shi's results in the unit test for the 3 subjects are very good. The math teacher and the English teacher told me that she also scored full marks for the other 2 subjects. Wow! A few of the children who were not calm cried out in surprise. Of course, most of them were still in a confused and wait-and-see state. For example, Lan Xian even moved her butt in her seat, as if sitting more comfortably was more important than listening to other people's results. Really? She didn't expect teacher Li to reveal her results for the other subjects during Chinese class. The little girl turned her head in surprise and looked at the teacher. She asked, I scored 100 points for 2 subjects. Li Rulin didn't expect Shi to interact with her so openly. She thought that Shi would be a little embarrassed after hearing it. In the end, when she saw Cici raise 2 fingers, she realized that she had miscalculated. so she changed it to 3 fingers. Her slender little fingers swayed, so cute that Li Rulin couldn't wait to take a bite out of them. Of course it's true, but don't be arrogant and slack off. Because this is only the first exam. If you don't take it seriously next time, you might be overtaken by others. Li Rulin said gently. In the afternoon, Shishi went home. In the car, the little girl was beaming with joy. However, when Yang Yi asked her what had happened, she refused to say. She also didn't allow Lan Xian to say anything. The 2 little girls were playing in the back, as if they were keeping a secret from each other. Yang Yi asked anxiously. Shishi cried out in a clear voice. I can only tell you when I get home and Mom is with me. You still want to wait for Mom? Can't you tell me a little and let Dad know first? Actually, Yang Yi could roughly guess that Cici was so happy because she had done well in the exam after the results were announced. However, he still teased the little girl. You can't. Mama said I can't just tell Papa and not Mama. Cici explained seriously. Okay. When they got home, Shishi ran over and pulled Murphy over. She also asked Yang Yi to stop what he was doing and urged them to sit in a row. Little brother, sit here too. Shishi arranged diligently. Tong Tong sat next to his mother in a daze. He didn't know what was going on. He just stared at his sister's figure with his big eyes. Yang Yi and Murphy were very cooperative. They didn't move and just watched Shishi carefully take out a few neatly folded test papers from her school bag. Papa, Mama, look, I got 100 points. 3 100 points. Shishi finally said the words she had been holding back for a long time. She pointed at the test papers on the table with her little finger. So good? 3 100 points. Murphy was really surprised and couldn't stop smiling. She took Shishi's test papers and looked at them one by one. They are all ticked. Oh Shishi, Mom is so proud of you. Shishi didn't have to hold back anymore. She jumped into her father's arms and giggled. Actually, it's quite easy to get full marks in the first grade, right? Yang Yi touched his chin and glanced at the math paper. These questions are quite easy. Murphy patted his shoulder reproachfully. You talk too much. Cici straightened her body, pouted her small mouth, and said unwillingly, But Teacher Lee said that I'm the only one in our class who got 3 full marks. Are there any in other classes? Murphy asked. There are in other classes. Chi-Chi also got 3 100 points, and then Zhao also got 2 100 points. Xi and Air also got 100 points in English. Shishi said. But I'm the only one in our class. You can't underestimate these 3 100 points. Shishi, you are very good. Murphy gave her a thumbs up. You really did well this time. Yang Yi smiled and rubbed his daughter's little head. He said, But do you remember what Papa told you? If you do well, don't be proud. Next time work harder. I know. This morning, Teacher Lee also told me. She said that if I don't work hard, I will be surpassed by others. Shishi said with joy. Then I told Teacher Lee that my papa told me the story of the rabbit and the tortoise. I know that I can't be lazy. Yang Yi and Murphy looked at each other in surprise. Although they didn't know how Li Rulin would react to Shishi's story of the rabbit and the tortoise, Shishi's performance was really beyond their imagination. Chapter 856. Sister Ding Xiang, are you free this afternoon? The next day, Yang Huan saw Ding Xiang, who had just finished her work at the coffee shop, and asked her with a smile. I'm going to the department to submit my thesis proposal to my tutor. Why? Ding Xiang answered curiously. My brother said he'll treat us to dinner tonight. He's really happy that Shishi got full marks in her unit test. Yang Huan said excitedly. He asked me to inform you guys that we haven't gotten together for a while. If it wasn't because they went overseas, it would be because Xiao Gua and you weren't in Jiangxing when they came back. This time, we can all have dinner together. Shishi's results were among the best. Although Yang Yi and Murphy did not show it in front of Shishi, they were actually very happy. They decided to invite their friends and family to a restaurant to celebrate. The timing was good. It was Friday, and Guazi and Yang Huan did not have classes that night. I'm fine with it. I'll help you inform them that Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan went to Beijing to participate in the coaching training of China's top voice, so it should be just the few of us. I'm not sure if there's anyone else other than Sister Xiaowan. Did Brother Yang ask me to book a table for him? Ding Xiang was already used to her identity as a manager or assistant. She even took out a notebook from her pocket to make notes. He didn't ask. Sigh, Sister Ding Xiang. You don't have to worry about this. My brother has his assistant too. We don't have to trouble ourselves with booking a hotel. Yang Huan said with a smile. I'll inform Feng Tang and the rest. Aren't you going to school this afternoon? You can inform Xiao Gua as well. The relationship between Ding Xiang and Guazi was very mysterious. According to Yang Huan's observation, the two of them had feelings for each other. However, for some reason, neither of them was willing to talk about the last bit of their relationship. They were filming in Beijing during the summer break, and the company rented 2 apartments across from each other. Ding Xiang and Yang Huan stayed in one, and Guazi stayed in the other. Of course, since the girls' rooms needed fresh air, the kitchen in Guazi's room was used by the 2 girls. Usually, Ding Xiang would cook and cook. She would stay at home most of the time when she was filming extras. When Yang Huan was free, she would also help out a little. But most of the time, Ding Xiang would appear at Guazi's place. Interestingly, Yang Huan knew that if she didn't show up, Guazi would be very attentive in going in and out of the kitchen to help Ding Xiang. Even though he was a clumsy young master, and had been given everything since he was a child, his attentiveness was still impressive. However, if Yang Huan was there as well, Guazi would be too embarrassed to meddle in the kitchen. Another interesting thing was that Yang Huan could tell that Ding Xiang actually had a good impression of Guazi. It was Guazi's birthday, and no one remembered it. Yang Huan would never remember someone else's birthday. Guazi's family was so busy that they forgot about it. They only remembered it the next day and called him back. But Ding Xiang remembered. Not only did she remember, but she also prepared in advance. She asked Yang Huan for help, and used her salary to buy Guazi a cake and a small gift. Yang Huan knew Ding Xiang very well. Ding Xiang was a very frugal person. Even if the company gave her money, she couldn't bear to spend it extravagantly. However, the watch that Ding Xiang bought for Guazi cost more than 1,000 yuan. Although it wasn't a branded watch, Ding Xiang had never bought anything that cost more than 500 yuan for herself. As far as this gift was concerned, Yang Huan felt that it would be strange if Ding Xiang was not interested in Guazi. Then again, Guazi didn't disappoint. Ever since he received the gift, he wore the watch every day. At least, Yang Huan didn't see him take it off. In the afternoon, Ding Xiang rushed to the building of the School of Business Media with a stack of manuscripts. She was in her 4th year this semester. Although she didn't have many classes and was waiting to graduate and start working full-time, she still had to write her graduation thesis. Even if she was a straight-A student, she still had to follow the teacher's procedures and go through the opening report several times. After handing in the opening report in the tutor's office on the 6th floor, Ding Xiang quickly walked to Guazi's classroom. Ding Xiang had Guazi's class schedule. Before she came, she had checked Guazi's class on the 4th floor. Since it was so close, she directly walked down the stairs. Senior Guazi, I'm your fan. I've liked you for a long time. Ding Xiang was walking down the stairs when she heard a childish voice coming from the corridor. She frowned and hesitated for a moment before stopping. You are. Guazi's voice was right. I'm from the piano department. My name is Shui Baolin. You can also call me Bao. This time, Ding Xiang could tell that the voice wasn't childish. It was the voice of a baby that was popular on the internet. However, it felt like it was pinched. Shui, you're a freshman? Guazi's response was a little awkward. Yes. I just entered the school. Senior Gua, you're really smart. The baby voice giggled. Aya, you already called me Bao, calling Shui Baolin widens the distance. My classmates and friends all call me Bao. Oh right, can I call you Brother Gua? What Bao or Brother Gua? Who would call each other so intimately on their first meeting? Moreover, Guazi, why are you still hesitating? Shui Baolin didn't wait for Guazi's agreement and continued. Brother Gua, let me tell you, I've liked you for 2 years. I've liked you since you filmed Fairy Tale. After that, when you filmed The Limit Challenge, I didn't miss a single episode. Really? Ha 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 ha, thank you. Guazi smiled politely. Did you know? Brother Gua, I got into Jiangqing Media University because of you. My family originally wanted me to study at Sichuan Music Academy, but I liked you so much that I secretly applied for Jiangqing Media University. I didn't expect to really get in. I'm so happy. Then, I still have to congratulate you. Guazi didn't know how to reply. When school started, I came to look for you many times. I came every day, but you weren't in school. Your classmates even said that you went to film a movie. Xue Baolin said regretfully, but it doesn't matter. When I heard that you were back, I immediately came to see you. I'm so happy to see you alive. Ahaha, have you seen me when I'm not alive? Guazi actually joked with her. Ding Xiang couldn't help but frown. Hehe, Brother Gua, what you said is really interesting. Can I have your contact? Mobile phone, SNS, etc. I have many questions to consult you in the future. For example, I just came to Jiangqing Media University in Jiangqing, so I don't know many things. If I can get to know you and learn more from you, it'll be great. Xue Baolin smiled happily and made many requests in one breath. Micro-broadcasting won't be necessary. I've been following your micro-broadcasting for a long time. Oh yes, can we follow each other? With so many requests, what does this woman want? Ding Xiang took a deep breath and clenched her fist. Chapter 857. Should he give her the phone or not? Guazi was a little conflicted. It was not that Xue Baolin was not pretty. This girl was from the 2D world. She was wearing a princess dress, white stockings, and cute cat ears. She was obviously a cosplay enthusiast. Furthermore, her figure was tall and fair. It was unknown if she wore any padding, but the lace front of her princess dress concealed her two towering peaks. If it weren't for the fact that her face wasn't cute enough, then she would definitely be called cough cough. Anyway, with this kind of appearance and dressing, it would definitely cause a commotion among the group of nerds in the business media school. Guazi felt terrible when he saw this. He quickly called the girl who came to his door to talk to him in the corridor. The girl did not react to other people's stunned gazes. But it was also expected. Wearing 2D clothes everywhere, she should have long been used to other people's gazes. Guazi did not deny that when he saw her, he was indeed stunned. And to be honest, with such a beautiful girl from the 2D world coming to his door, and being called senior and brother, it was inevitable that he would feel a little smug in his heart. But Guazi felt that this girl's childish voice was very strange. It sounded as if there was a clamp on her throat. Was she speaking while pinching her throat? It did not feel real. Guazi hesitated for a while. He felt that if he did not give her the phone, it would be a little too disrespectful to the girl. Moreover, he was a fatty. What right did he have to act cold to other girls? But if he gave her the phone, Guazi felt that something was not right. He faintly resisted it in his heart. Could it be that I don't like her voice? But it's also true. Hearing it now gives me goosebumps. If I hear it often, I will not be able to stand it. Sister Ding Xiang's voice is still nice. It's gentle and sincere. But this Xue Baolin is not insincere. It's just that. Sigh, I don't know how to describe it. Guazi muttered to himself. That's right. Sister Ding Xiang. Guazi's mind flashed back to the first time Sister Ding Xiang came out in the coffee shop's uniform. That shy look immediately swept away the image of this Xue Baolin in front of him. This student Xue. Didn't we agree that you can call me Bauer? That Xue Baolin acted coquettishly again. Ahem, I'll just call you student Xue. I want to apologize to you first. I'm sorry, but I can't give you my number because... Guazi was still thinking of an excuse. For example, if he spent most of his time filming and his phone was in the hands of his manager? Why? Do you hate me? Xue Baolin asked. Guazi denied the reason he had just thought of. He had a headache because this woman was a little difficult to deal with. Luckily, he had been recording shows with Yuan Yan and Dan Hongkue for the past year, so his EQ had improved a lot. This is the case. I have a girlfriend. I like her very much, so I can't give her this cell phone number. Do you understand what I mean? Guazi thought about it and said. You already have a girlfriend. Shui Baolin's voice was filled with regret and sadness. Is it Yang Huan? Doesn't she often bully you on the show? It's not her. Guazi quickly denied. Then is it Senior Qin Wen who filmed Fairy Tale with you? Shui Baolin continued. It's not her either. Don't guess. You don't know her. Guazi finally felt that he had the confidence to talk to her. Your girlfriend cares that you gave your cell phone number to another girl? Isn't that a bit too much? Shui Baolin's eyes and words seemed to be saying. Take me as your girlfriend. I don't care too much. Ahem, it's not like that. I just think that since you have a girlfriend, you should take the initiative to keep a distance from other girls. This is what Brother Yang Yi taught me. He has a very good relationship with sister-in-law. Guazi scratched his head and said. Also, my girlfriend is very good to me. She cooks a lot for me. Although she is sometimes very strict, she always thinks about my health. Guazi thought of some of the past events in Shanghai and the capital, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but reveal a sweet smile. Shui Baolin saw it and said with disappointment, I understand. I'm sorry, Brother Gua. I won't disturb you anymore. But I will always like you. I will always follow your works. You must work hard to film Extreme Challenge and sing. I really like your fairy tale. Shui Baolin took the elevator and left with regret. Guazi, on the other hand, was standing behind her. Looking at her leaving silhouette, he gently shook his head and thought to himself, she still claims to be my fan. She's only a true fan if she likes my movies after watching the Extreme Challenge. Guazi returned to the classroom. Not long after, his former roommate bumped his arm and said with envy, It's good to be a big star. Look, there's another beauty outside looking for you. Guazi raised his head and saw Ding Xiang outside. She was a little embarrassed to greet a familiar classmate. A trace of joy flashed across his face, and he happily went out to welcome her. Sister Ding Xiang, why are you here? Guazi scratched his head. After he went out, he was a little nervous. This group of bastards, could it be that they told Sister Ding Xiang that the two-dimensional girl came? Ding Xiang looked at Guazi with a complicated expression. It was so complicated that she couldn't explain it. She even didn't dare to look at Guazi. I have something to tell you. Ding Xiang called Guazi to the side. Guazi followed. They walked to the end of the corridor where there was no one. However, Ding Xiang was unexpectedly silent. The atmosphere became a little ambiguous. Guazi was confused and scratched his head. After being silent for a while, Guazi felt uneasy. His heart was in a mess. Don't tell me she really knows? Fortunately, Ding Xiang still opened her mouth. It's like this. Tonight, Brother Yang wants to invite us to a restaurant for dinner. It's been a long time since we got together. Let's get together. She got full marks in 3 exams in school. This is something worth celebrating. Guazi secretly breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Okay. I don't have any other plans tonight. I'll go with you guys. Guazi still didn't want Ding Xiang to know about Shui Baolin. He was a man. Although he didn't do it, he still felt guilty. By the way, although this dinner is mainly because of Shishi's good results, Brother Yang said that when we eat, we should try not to mention this. He doesn't want Shishi to be proud. Ding Xiang reminded Guazi as usual. This was indeed Yang Yi's request. He was afraid that if there were too many people praising Shishi, Shishi would be proud. Although he and Murphy were very happy and wanted to tell everyone the good news, it was normal for parents. This was just a small test. There was no need to make a big fuss. Okay, I'll remember. Guazi smiled and nodded. However, after Ding Xiang finished speaking, she looked at Guazi with a complicated expression. She hesitated for a while and asked, Is there anything else you want to say to me? Guazi looked at Ding Xiang in confusion. No, I've said everything I want to say. What is there to say now? What do you mean? Ding Xiang smiled and said, No, I was wrong. Let's meet tonight. Chapter 858. Wow, Shishi, you look beautiful in your school uniform. You look just like a little lady. Yang Yi and Murphy were the last to arrive because they had to pick up Shishi. As soon as they walked into the hotel room, Shishi received praise from Mo Shaowan and Ding Xiang. She pulled the skirt of her school uniform and shook her little, but in embarrassment as she smiled sweetly at them. Hearing you guys say that, I suddenly feel that time has passed very quickly. Aside from Big Brother Yang, Big Sister Murphy, and Big Sister Shawan, I should be the first to know Shishi, so I should have the most right to speak. Back then, Shishi was still so small, but in the blink of an eye, 2 years have passed, and Shishi has grown so tall. Guazi used his hand to show Shishi's height back then, and said emotionally. Shishi blinked her big eyes and looked at the height that Uncle Guazi was showing in astonishment, as if she couldn't believe that she was so small in the past. Yang Yi placed Shishi's school bag on the sofa and smiled. Little Gua, you've changed a lot too. 2 years ago, when I met you, you were only 16, right? Almost 17. Guazi was probably worried that Ding Xiang would care about the age gap between them when others talked about his age. Therefore, he often deliberately made his age vague, and said that he was older. Regardless of 16 or 17, you've grown a lot in the past 2 years. You're almost 1.8 meters now, right? Yang Yi smiled. This is also growth and change. Uncle Little Gua, are you 19 years old now? Shishi looked at Guazi curiously and asked. Simple addition and subtraction questions within 3 digits weren't difficult for Shishi. Yes. Guazi patted Shishi's shoulder with a smile. The adults gradually shifted the topic and focused to Tong Tong. Shishi looked left and right, and then looked at Guazi. Uncle Little Gua, Papa said that you were in a big prison and went to act in a movie, right? My papa used to act in a movie, and he was also locked in a big prison before he was released. Shishi pulled Guazi's clothes and asked excitedly. Bah, who was locked in a big prison? Of course. She was right. Yang Yi's character was indeed released from prison, before he went to the bank. Yeah, I was locked up in a big prison. No, it was just an old and abandoned prison. The crew rented it and rebuilt it into a new set. Guazi was a little led astray by Shishi. Sensing that something was wrong, he immediately corrected her, because the main plot of that movie took place in prison. Wow! Shishi felt that it was amazing. She had seen a prison in her father's movie, and it seemed to be very big. Wow, what? Guazi found it funny and said, Your father knows about this matter better than I do, because the story of that movie was written by your father. That's right, the movie that Guazi went to act in was The Shawshank Redemption. However, he was similar to Du Yuanlei. For such a big production, they could only learn from the crew and didn't have the opportunity to act in an important role. Papa wrote it. Shishi was a little surprised. Yeah, Guazi nodded and said, Your father is very awesome. Hee. I don't know. The little girl twisted her body and smiled shyly. Shishi continued with her previous question and asked curiously, Then Uncle Little Gua, what role did you play? Was it a big bad guy? Or a good guy? Well, how should I put it? I'm just playing an ordinary prison guard, which is to say prison police. Guazi was afraid that Shishi wouldn't understand, so he explained in detail. Like those prison police with status, they all wear uniforms with a black coat on the outside. Shishi opened her eyes wide and listened with rapt attention. Just like your school uniform. There are a few prison guards with status, and it's easy to recognize them. They all wear coats. Guazi pointed to Shishi's school uniform and gave an example. They are leaders so they can speak. But I'm just an ordinary prison guard, so I can't speak without a coat. Then you can buy a coat. Mine is too small, so I can't let you wear it. You can ask my papa to buy it for you. Shishi said naively. Haha. Thank you for your concern, but you can't just wear a coat. This is the role arranged by the director, just like how you can play Wang Mai and not Wang Li. Guazi laughed happily. Okay then. Shishi spread her hands like a little adult and said, Then I can't help it. However, the little girl was still very interested in filming. She asked Guazi about the filming, and Guazi also told her some of the highlights of the filming. This gathering was a rare gathering in the past few months. At the dinner table, the topic of everyone's conversation was naturally not just the 2 little guys. They first talked about each other's development, some interesting and embarrassing things during this summer vacation, and then they talked about Emo Xiaozhuan's relationship problems. Everyone present was more familiar with each other. Mo Xiaowan often met Guizi and Ding Xiang. Because of Yang Yi, everyone cared about each other like relatives. Among the women here, Mo Xiaowan, who was only a little younger than Murphy and was about to cross the threshold of 30 this year, naturally received the most attention. Murphy said seriously, "I'm not nagging you, but Xiaowan, you really should hurry up. You're not an idol or a public figure who often needs to be exposed. You don't have to get married too late. If you keep delaying it, you'll delay your own life." Sister. Mo Xiaowan was a little helpless. She rolled her eyes and said, "I'll keep what you said in mind. By the way, Guo, you've been working in director Wu Yian's crew for more than half a month, so you probably don't know that the most famous person at this table is neither your brother Yang nor your sister Murphy, right?" "Hey, Sister Xiaowan, isn't it a little too awkward for you to change the topic?" Yang Huan shouted. The others also started to tease Mo Xiaowan, and the atmosphere was very cheerful. "Huan, if you don't stand on my side, you'll be nagged in a few years," Mo Xiaowan said grumpily. Hee, Sister Xiaowan, why would I be nagged? Maybe I'll be single in a few years. It's not like no one is chasing me now. Some people even send me flowers every day. They even came to the coffee shop," Yang Huan said with a grin. "What? Who's so shameless?" Yang Yi's face turned serious. "You're here? A brother? No. Some of my classmates who like me sent me flowers. Just ignore them." Yang Huan shrank back, not daring to be mischievous anymore. Mo Xiaowan was very pleased that she had diverted the trouble. She even teased Yang Yi and Yang Huan. "Brother-in-law, let me tell you, don't be too strict with Huan now. If you scare those young people away from her, you'll be the one who'll be worried about why no one is chasing her in a few years." Yang Yi frowned. He just realized that Mo Xiaowan seemed to have a point. Hearing their conversation, Guizi could not help but turn to Ding Xiang, who was sitting beside him, and ask, "Sister Ding Xiang, what did Sister Xiaowan mean just now? In fact, the most famous person at our table is not elder brother Yang or elder sister Mo Fei. Who else is there?" Ding Xiang's mind wandered when she heard Yang Huan say that there were people chasing her. She was in a daze for a while before she came back to her senses. "Ah, what are you asking?" Chapter 859. The title should be The Little Girl Who Likes to Be a Teacher. I missed the double quotation marks. Ding Xiang did not hear Guizi's question clearly, but Yang Huan, who was sitting next to Ding Xiang, heard it loud and clear. Earlier, she and Mo Xiaowan were hurting each other, but now, she was eager to get away from this dangerous topic. Therefore she rushed to answer. "Of course. The most famous one is Shishi, right?" Shishi was already full. Since she did not understand what the adults were talking about, she was bored and sat on her chair. She looked at her parents and her little brother. Tong Tong was treated much better, as his mother took good care of him. Although Murphy was talking about Mo Xiaowan, she still paid more attention to feeding Tong Tong. The food was carrot and yam porridge that she had brought from home. Other than mashed carrots and yams, there was also pork rib soup that had been skimmed off. The porridge was very tasty and nutritious. However, at this moment, when Cece heard her little aunt mention her name, she curiously turned her head and looked over. "Shishi is the most famous one?" Guizi was surprised. "Yes. Don't limit your view to this country. If you look at it from a global perspective, many foreigners might not know my brother and sister Murphy, but they definitely know Shishi," Yang Huan said with a smile. "Because Shishi performed a dance, it's popular all over the world now. Many of my classmates have formed a team to perform this dance, and they will upload videos of it. It will be very popular." When Yang Huan saw Shishi looking at her, she winked at her and said with a smile, "Is that so? Shishi, did you perform a dance when you were recording a show in America?" "Yes. It's a very fun dance." Cece, who was bored, became interested and asked happily, "Do you want to learn it? I can teach you. Let Uncle Guo learn from you. He exercises every day, and he has lost half of his weight. He is as light as a swallow, and he will definitely dance well," Yang Huan said with a smile. "Ah, I don't know how to dance, so you should do it." Guazi waved his hand in a panic. Shishi, teach your aunt how to dance. She knows martial arts and has a strong body. She's good at dancing. Mo Xiaowan was watching from the side. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. She smiled and said, I got it. How about this? Shishi, teach them how to dance seve at the same time. Record it and let others judge who dances better. Yang Huan and Guazi were dumbfounded. Shishi, on the other hand, shouted enthusiastically, Okay, okay. Beside her, Yang Yi laughed. Xiaowan, you're really ruthless. You caught them all in one fell swoop. This is a good thing. Mo Xiaowan explained. Right now they don't have any works. Recording a short video like this and uploading it to micro-broadcasting can maintain their popularity. Moreover, this dance is not popular in China yet. Under Shishi's guidance, they will dance first. During the recording, they will edit Shishi's tutorial into the video. When this dance becomes popular, people will not forget about them. Maybe this dance will become popular because of them. We just need to trouble Shishi a little. Mo Xiaojuan's train of thought was getting clearer and clearer. By the way, micro-broadcasting can also invite the other 4 contestants of the Extreme Challenge to participate in the dance challenge. It will be a warm-up for next year's Extreme Challenge. Yang Yi, on the other hand, didn't think so much. He muttered to himself for a while, and then saw Cece's excited and eager look to teach others. He then nodded and said, We just had a meal today, so I'll teach you tomorrow. Let's go to the coffee shop tomorrow. However, when you get someone to edit the video, please remind them to give Shishi as little screen time as possible. Shishi was very happy to teach others the dance that she had spent so much effort to learn. During the teaching process, it might be a good opportunity to show off her skills. The next day, in the small building above the coffee shop, the original studio had been vacated. Everyone had prepared early, including the loose clothes and indoor shoes for dancing. Everything was prepared. When Shishi arrived, everyone went straight to the point. For Shishi, it was not her first time being a dance teacher. She had taught Ms. Prada before. This time, she was teaching someone she was familiar with, so the little girl was not nervous at all. Standing in the middle of the empty studio, under everyone's gaze, she tilted her head and thought for a while. Then she turned around and asked for the phone from her father. While skillfully pressing the password to unlock the phone, she pouted and said, Let me play some music for you first. It's super nice. Shishi quickly opened the music app and found the song by Seve with ease. Yang Huan did not have many musical talent, so her ability to appreciate songs was limited. After listening for a while, she began to daydream. She smiled and said to Guazi, Xiaogua, today is the day to test the results of your hard work under Sister Ding Xiang's supervision. You have to learn well. I was forced to do this by you guys. Guazi shook his head helplessly. Dancing is not my ability. Then are you looking down on our coach Shishi's skills? Yang Huan teased him on purpose. Shishi was watching from the side. Hearing the teasing, she could not help but giggle. Yang Yi was helping to take pictures with a small camera, but he did not say anything. Murphy smiled and stood up for Yang Huan. Huan, don't always bully Xiaogua. It's not easy for Xiaogua. It's his first time learning to dance. You guys should say more encouraging words. That's right. Guazi nodded quickly. Encouraging words? Let Sister Ding Xiang do it. She's the most effective. Yang Huan bumped Ding Xiang's shoulder and said meaningfully. Ah. Ding Xiang said helplessly. She had been keeping a low profile, afraid that they would ask her to dance with them. She did not expect Yang Huan to drag her into this. Murphy had heard some gossip from Yang Yi. At this moment she said with interest, Ding Xiang, don't let Huan break Xiaogua's spirit. Sometimes, a word of encouragement from you is more effective than all of our words. The meaning of Mo Fei's words was very obvious. As soon as she finished speaking, Ding Xiang, who was shy, blushed. That's not true. How could my spirit be broken by Master Huan? Guazi was afraid that Ding Xiang would feel awkward, so he took the initiative to help her. In fact, both Yang Huan and Mo Fei had the intention to matchmake the two of them. However, despite their explicit hints, Ding Xiang and Guazi seemed to be a little hesitant. Instead, they were covering for each other. Of course, Murphy did not dare to make it too clear. If Guozi and Ding Xiang didn't get together, and instead, because they were too anxious, they didn't get along well, wouldn't it be a bad thing if the two of them drifted apart? Of course, the most important thing now was to learn how to dance from Shishi. When Shishi was listening to the music, although she had not learned how to dance, she had already begun to twist and turn gently, as if she was immersed in the melody. Let's start now. When the music ended, the little girl said eagerly, I just wanted to help her. Yang Huan knew it was wrong to do that, so she kept defending herself. Of course, Yang Huan was not trying to find an excuse. She really wanted to help Ding Xiang. If it were something else, Yang Huan wouldn't have gone through someone else's history to do something so immoral. According to the Yang family's education, if Yang Chongwei found out about this kind of petty theft, he would break her legs. From the history, it could be seen that Ding Xiang had browsed a lot of web pages over the past few days. However, most of them were related to literature. She was busy with her graduation thesis, so she needed to look up a lot of information. There were also some web pages related to the entertainment industry. These were Ding Xiang's work. Although Yang Huan and Guozi didn't have any work to do for the time being, as they had classes, Ding Xiang still paid attention to the entertainment industry. Finally, Yang Huan found the web records of Ding Xiang's intensive searches for these questions. It was yesterday afternoon. Yang Huan rested her chin on her hand, looking confused. What happened yesterday? The cursor moved, and suddenly stopped at the earliest record. The person you like has been confessed to. You feel terrible. Why? Qiandu searched. Yang Huan frowned. She opened a web page that Ding Xiang had visited that Qiandu knew about. The main question was, the person I like has been confessed to. To be honest, I feel terrible. We are friends, and he was the first to tell me. What should I do? The following answer was very cruel. This is the result of being indecisive. Why didn't you confess to the person you like at the first moment? However, before Yang Huan could open her eyes, there was a noise outside. Ding Xiang had finished her shower. Yang Huan closed the web page and the history in a hurry. She even closed the browser out of guilt, and the mouse moved around on the editing software. How is it? Is the video out? I want to see it. It was so interesting learning how to dance today. Ding Xiang didn't notice Yang Huan. She pushed the door open and asked with a smile while wiping her hair. How can it be done so quickly? I'm still waiting for it to be done. Yang Huan laughed and changed the topic. Sister Ding Xiang, if you think it's interesting, why didn't you dance when we asked you to? I'm not good at dancing. Ding Xiang blushed again. She recalled how Yang Yi and Murphy tried to arrange her to dance with Guozi. She wasn't stupid. How could she not know what they were trying to do? It's okay if you're not good at dancing. Xiaoguo isn't good at dancing either, right? The two of you are perfect for each other. Yang Huan said with a smile. Yang Huan enunciated the last word very clearly. Furthermore, she was also staring at Ding Xiang's expression as though she was trying to find some clues from it. I'm not a celebrity. It's not good for me to appear in your video, Ding Xiang explained with a red face. Yang Huan sighed in relief. He didn't say no. That means it's still him, not another guy. When is the Limit Challenge coming back? I think such a popular show should be filmed once a week. It can go on forever. Late at night, Jiang Yuje's wailing could be heard in a university dormitory. Jiang Yuje was the variety show fan who was charmed by Strive to Win. Because of this song, he had become Yang Yi's loyal fan. However, during this period of time, he was a little bored. This was because the first season of the Limit Challenge had already ended. As for Yang Yi's other program, China's Voice, which aired once a week, he had already watched it when it first aired on television. You're thinking too much, aren't you? His roommate laughed. The members of the Limit Challenge aren't professional variety show hosts. Big shots like Jie Yuchen and Dan Hongkui need to film too. They can't possibly record shows for you all year long, right? I'm just saying. I know their difficulties. It's good enough that they have time to record shows. It's just a reality show. The other shows aren't good, especially that travel challenge. It's like sh*t. Jiang Yujie looked at the fake smiles of the handsome guys and pretty girls on the computer screen, and closed the webpage in disgust. That's right. I think it's a problem with the selection of guests. What kind of guests did the travel challenge invite? What kind of people did the limit challenge invite? I think there's an episode where teacher Yuan Yin said it very well. Good looks are all the same, but interesting souls are one in a million, his roommate said. Jiang Yujie reacted quickly and said, in the episode on June 20th, they went to Kaiyun province to play. Jie Yuchen was there showing off. Yuan Yin and Guozi teased him. However, it's quite appropriate for you to use it here. I also think that the guests of the Limit Challenge are all the same. Our Extreme 6 is more interesting. At this moment, another roommate took off his headphones and laughed. Are you guys talking about extreme selections? Did you watch the video that Yang Huan posted just now? It's so interesting. Chapter 861. What video is it? Click on the replay and let's see. Jiang Yujie and a few other interested roommates came over and asked him to unplug his earphones to play the video. He didn't know if the education network was slow to react, or if this guy's computer was lagging because he often downloaded short videos. After a while, the video finally played. They saw a little girl holding a phone that was much bigger than her palm appear on the computer screen. She looked like she was carved out of jade, and was very cute. Although there were Photoshop software in this era, and it was very popular to retouch one's own photos, there weren't any powerful beauty features in the shooting tools and video software. Other than special effects artists, most people couldn't slim down or whiten someone's face in a video. Therefore, the girl in the video without any makeup displayed her natural beauty. In the camera, she held the phone and said seriously, "Alright, the song is over. Let's start dancing." At this moment, Yang Yi's voice came from behind the camera. Ask them to warm up first. Before dancing, they should adjust their muscles and bones so that they won't get hurt easily. Cece turned her head and looked at the camera, her father behind the camera. Blinking her eyes, she smiled embarrassedly. I've forgotten about the song. Let me teach Uncle Gua and Auntie Xiao how to warm up first. Where did Yang Huan find this little girl? Aren't those big eyes too cute? And her eyelashes, they can't be fake, right? How can they be so long at such a young age? A roommate mumbled. She's Yang Yi's daughter. Jiang Yujie explained helplessly. It can't be fake eyelashes. She has good genes, and her mother is very beautiful. Because the video was edited, the camera didn't drag. Soon it showed Yang Huan and Guozi warming up. Yang Huan was fine. She practiced martial arts all year round and had a good physique. Her movements were on point. On the other hand, Guozi was the center of everyone's laughter. For example, Guozi could not even touch his ankle when he bent down and touched his toes. Although many people were not as flexible as Guozi, they felt an inexplicable sense of humor when they saw him raise his head with a frown. Yang Huan even ran forward mischievously and showed off his super flexibility in front of Guozi by pressing his palms on the soles of his feet. The camera paused for a second on Guozi's funny face as he rolled his eyes. Sigh, I feel sorry for him. Everyone in the dorm laughed. Gua is really a comedian. His every move is hilarious. Of course, they soon saw Yang Huan make a fool out of herself. The video cut directly to the part where they practiced the dance steps. She first demonstrated a set of very simple front kicks and tiptoes. The little girl even slowed down her movements. There was no sound of Shishi's voice, only funny background music and dance steps. Then Yang Huan appeared on camera. Maybe it was because she was a beginner, but she couldn't remember the movements. Her body seemed to have lost its coordination. She couldn't differentiate between left and right. After she finished her left kick, she retracted her left leg and tiptoed. Her right leg was in a daze. As she danced, she even kicked in the air with both legs as if she had given up. In the end, she hugged her leg and squatted down. If one looked at this part, Yang Huan indeed didn't have any talent in dancing. She was clumsy. As a matter of fact, Guozi, who was beside him, was already lying on the ground, laughing heartily as he slapped the floor. Haha, Yang Huan, you deserve it. Jiang Yujie and his roommates couldn't help but laugh. Of course, these were just highlights. They mainly showed the difficulties and setbacks they had encountered during their dance practice. Yang Huan's micro-broadcasting also said, "Today Guizi and I learned a super cool dance from teacher Shishi. Don't be fooled by the highlights. When our colleagues edit the video, I promise you that our learning will amaze you." However, the fans under micro-broadcasting were very happy and not serious at all. "I don't believe you. Based on your performance just now, you probably have no chance to dance in this lifetime. Gua knows how to dance. Pigs can climb trees. This is the Seve shuffle dance that Shishi did on the Prada talk show, right? Shishi danced well. You guys can forget about it. Haha. You guys are feeling sorry for Gua, but I feel even more sorry for Shishi. Our little cutie must have tried her best to teach them, but she was faced with two uncoordinated people, two dance maniacs. Teaching them must be very tiring. I came from Chef's micro-broadcasting just to catch a glimpse of our Shishi. Same as the one on the right, I feel sorry for the little girl. I came from Yang Yi's micro-broadcasting plus 1 inch. I'm just asking. You guys only feel sorry for Shishi, but don't you care about what dance they are doing? Not at all. Next. Haha, asking about what dance they are doing. You probably don't pay much attention to the news about Yang Yi and Shishi, right? They're obviously dancing the Seve shuffle dance that's popular overseas. Although Yang Huan and Guizi had gained a lot of fans because of the video that night, Yang Huan didn't sleep well the whole night. Sigh, why is Sister Ding Xiang so silly? She's so cute. As a girl, she actually wants to take the initiative to confess her love. Yang Huan tossed and turned in bed. Compared to her, Gua is too timid. He has liked Sister Ding Xiang for so long, but he hasn't done anything yet. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't do anything. Guizi was very nice to Ding Xiang. For example, when he went to record a show, he didn't care about anyone, and just brought a local souvenir for Ding Xiang. Usually, Guizi also took care of Ding Xiang in small details, which was something that the careless Yang Huan didn't notice. However, Yang Huan was right. Guizi didn't make any breakthrough in the past few months. This won't do. The relationship between Guizi and Sister Ding Xiang is a little. No, it should be said that there is a gap in all aspects between them. If Sister Ding Xiang confesses her love to Guizi, Sister Ding Xiang will be putting herself in a lower position. Yang Huan was worried about Ding Xiang. Although Yang Huan had never been in a relationship before, she had watched a lot of movies and dramas to learn how to act. She especially watched domestic soap operas and melodramatic family dramas, so she had a lot of experience. When analyzing the relationship between a man and a woman, she even skipped the factor of love and directly involved the complicated factors such as family status and the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. The more Yang Huan thought about it, the more excited she became. In the middle of the night, the righteous Lord Huan sat up from the bed and patted his thigh. No way, I have to help Sister Ding Xiang. The next day was Sunday. Guizi had already returned home, but he received a call from Yang Huan. Guizi, where are you? I have something to talk to you about. He was confused, but he still went out to meet Yang Huan. Chapter 862. Yang Huan didn't know that her half-baked detective, Ku Huan, was indeed a half-baked detective. She had only guessed half of Ding Xiang's thoughts. Of course, to clarify all of this, one had to rewind time to the afternoon 2 days ago. Ding Xiang stood in the stairwell, not knowing whether to move forward or backward. She clenched her fists and listened to Shui Baolin's confession to Guizi. Brother Gua, why aren't you saying anything? Ahem, I just find it strange. I'm fat and ugly, and the fans of the Extreme Challenge call me Little Fatty Gua. Why would you like me? Who said you're ugly? Although you're just a little chubbier, you're still very handsome. Also, people say that fat people have potential. I think they're right. You should be on a diet now. You've lost a lot of weight, and you've become more handsome. Really, you have a lot of female fans online. Everyone says you're gentle and caring. But I like your intelligence more. You're too smart. Every time I see you fighting with Yuan Yan, I'm so excited that I tremble all over. Ding Xiang's eyes dimmed, and she loosened her grip on his hand. When she heard Shui Baolin say that Guizi had become even more handsome after losing weight, Ding Xiang felt like she was regretting teaching her husband to seek a title. However, just as Ding Xiang was feeling sad, Guizi's words entered her ears. I have a girlfriend, and I like her a lot. Ding Xiang raised her head in surprise. Guizi had a girlfriend? Why didn't she know? Then she heard Guizi say, my girlfriend is quite nice to me. She cooks a lot for me. Although she's strict sometimes, she's always thinking about my health. Ding Xiang was stunned. Weren't these clues pointing to her? At that moment, Ding Xiang's emotions were in turmoil and became even more complicated. How did Ding Xiang feel about Guizi? Ding Xiang had the most right to speak. In the beginning, Guizi could only be regarded as a junior brother that left a deep impression on her. At that time, Guizi's character was still immature. He was just a little kid who hadn't grown up yet. He shamelessly wanted to go to the bar where she worked to play. If it weren't for Ding Xiang's good character and tolerance towards Guizi, if it were someone else, they probably wouldn't have bothered with Guizi. However, Ding Xiang did not expect that Guizi would return the favor and take the initiative to help her find a stable job in Yangyi. For this, Ding Xiang had always been grateful to Guizi. She even felt that Guizi was not only her friend, but also her benefactor, a benefactor just like Yang Yi. Therefore, when she was just a waitress, Ding Xiang had always been very tolerant of Guizi. If Guizi wanted to eat cake, Ding Xiang would also make delicious cakes. Of course, she was just an employee, and Guizi had to pay for it. During this period, something very special happened. Last year, on Ding Xiang's birthday, Guizi bought a birthday present for Ding Xiang. It was the crystal hair clip that Ding Xiang had taken a fancy to when Guizi accompanied her to buy a present for Murphy. Although Guizi had a good memory, he could keep the things that he liked in his heart and secretly bought it for her. This matter still stirred up a lot of waves in Ding Xiang's heart. Ding Xiang was very touched, but at that time, Ding Xiang's heart was thinking about her younger brothers and sisters in her hometown. She would send the money back when she earned it. Her life was tight, and she didn't have the mood to think about more complicated issues. This matter only stopped at the feeling of opening the gift. This situation continued until Yang Yi helped Ding Xiang solve her worries. Ding Xiang finally decided to live a good life and set an example for her younger brothers and sisters. From then on, Ding Xiang was the complete Ding Xiang. She began to save her own money and started to plan her career path. At the beginning, she was like a normal girl, having some romantic feelings. For a girl like Ding Xiang who had no feelings and a narrow circle of contacts, it was easier for her to be moved by the people around her. Tang Kaitai and his father were imprisoned, and Qianli Chuanshu regained his freedom. Last November, they celebrated at the coffee shop, which reminded Ding Xiang of something that she had forgotten for a long time. At that time, Tang Kaitai came to the coffee shop to harass Ding Xiang in order to get in touch with Yang Yi. Guizi stepped forward bravely and punched Tang Kaitai to the ground. True feelings are like plum blossoms, which can't be drowned by the cold ice and snow. It blooms on the coldest branch, seeing spring coming to you and me. Ding Xiang listened to Yang Yi singing this song. What she thought in her heart was completely different from what the others in the coffee shop thought. Although there were some signs, it was still very vague. The feelings really began to brew at the beginning of this year. Guizi began to lose weight. After he shamelessly pestered her, Ding Xiang also took responsibility for him. She helped him develop a weight loss plan, even accompanied him to Shanghai to film a movie and took care of his daily life. It seemed that Ding Xiang was just doing what an agent and assistant should do. However, during this period of time, the two of them still had some sparks. But these sparks were still unable to ignite the firewood of love. Just as Guizi said to Yang Yi, he was worried that he wasn't strong enough to protect Ding Xiang in front of his family. Guizi didn't dare to take the most important step, and Ding Xiang felt too inferior. She knew that Guizi came from a prominent family, but she also knew that she came from a humble background. The story of the prince and Cinderella only exists in fairy tales. This sentence was said by Yang Yi when he was chatting with someone. Ding Xiang couldn't remember where it came from. Perhaps she overheard it when she was delivering coffee, but it left a deep impression on her. Although they could vaguely sense that the other party was interested in her, neither of them dared to act rashly. This dragged on for half a year. In the corridor, Ding Xiang's mood dropped. When she heard Guozi clearly say that he liked the person who took care of him, Ding Xiang was so happy that she almost cried. She suppressed her tumbling emotions and returned to the coffee shop. She looked up the information that Yang Huan found when she was browsing through the historical records. Yes, Ding Xiang confirmed that she liked Guozi. She also knew that if she didn't bravely confess, they might miss each other forever. Ding Xiang even looked up whether a girl's confession would be successful, and how a girl would confess, etc. However, Yang Huan didn't know that after looking up the information, Ding Xiang sat in front of the computer in a daze for a long time. In the end, she dragged a notebook into the computer's trash can. It was a list of her confessions, experiences, and common phrases she used to confess. For half a year, she didn't have the courage to face this. Did Ding Xiang have the courage to face it now? There was a difference between Ding Xiang and Yang Huan. Yang Huan was emotional and straightforward, but Ding Xiang was rational. After she calmed down, she started to worry that her impulsiveness would bring trouble to Guozi. Even though she knew that Guozi liked her. Even though Guozi's words when he rejected Xue Baolin made Ding Xiang believe that Guozi was the one she loved. However, she also knew that there was a fatal gap between them that couldn't be crossed. Otherwise, why didn't Guozi confess to her? Liking someone was presumptuous, but love was restraint. For his sake, she also needed to restrain herself. After Ding Xiang thought it through, she felt a strong sense of powerlessness in her heart. The courage that she had accumulated was also destroyed by her rationality. In the past 2 days, no one could tell that Ding Xiang was hiding her sadness amidst everyone's laughter. However, after being sad, she still had to continue living, right? Chapter 863. Lights and shadows intertwined, and the clock returned to normal. Guozi was full of doubts as he rushed to the Wu Lake Park in Jiangcheng, which was near his home. As promised, he arrived at a milk tea shop. Before he could stand still, a person jumped out from the side and grabbed his arm, shouting anxiously, "Go, go, 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 go!" The person was strong, but her slender hand gripped Guozi's arm so tightly that it hurt. Luckily, Guozi recognized Yang Huan's voice. "What's wrong with you? Master Huan, why are you in such a hurry? Let me treat you to a cup of milk tea." Guozi asked in confusion. "Hey, there's no rush for milk tea. I think a fan recognized me just now. Let's go and find a quiet place to talk." Yang Huan was a little worried that her private meeting with Guozi would be reported and cause a misunderstanding. Luckily, this was Guozi's turf, and he was familiar with it. Soon Guozi brought Yang Huan to the lakeside of Wu Lake Park. They found a relatively remote bench and sat down to talk. But before Guozi could ask, Yang Huan, who could no longer hold back, asked, "Xiaogua, someone confessed to you on Friday, right?" Yang Huan was making a final confirmation. Although she could basically confirm the complicated relationship between Ding Xiang and Guozi, what if she was wrong? If it was not Guozi, and she had hurried over to persuade him, it would be awkward. Guozi was shocked. He scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "How did you know? Did my classmates tell you? Did someone really confess to you? I don't care who told me. Tell me first who confessed to you. How did they fall for you?" Yang Huan was gossipy and teasing him. Guozi thought that Yang Huan knew, so he did not hide it. He told Yang Huan about the two-dimensional girl. Listening to Guozi's explanation, Yang Huan thought to herself, that must be it. Sister Ding Xiang must have met her at that time, and that's why she was shocked. "Sure. Lil Guozi, I didn't know you were so charming." Yang Huan patted Guozi's shoulder like a man. "How did you respond? You promised that girl?" "No, she didn't confess. She just asked for my phone number." Guozi could tell that although Yang Huan kept asking, her attitude towards him was the same as usual. Therefore, he let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Lord Huan, how could I dare to give out my phone number? See, I refused on the spot." Did he really refuse? Yang Huan's eyes lit up. I really rejected her. Guozi smiled and said, I even lied to her that I have a girlfriend. Yang Huan flicked her bangs, and a look of realization appeared in her eyes. Why are you suddenly asking this? Guozi asked curiously. However, Yang Huan did not intend to answer him. She changed the topic abruptly. Xiaoguo, you have to tell me the truth. Are you still in love with Sister Ding Xiang? Guozi was stunned and did not know how to answer. Tell me. Yang Huan said unhappily. You are a man. Don't be so wishy-washy. If you are in love with her, then you are. Why don't you dare to admit it? Lord Huan. What are you trying to say? Guozi said helplessly. Why did you come here early in the morning to ask me these questions? Of course, I have something to tell you, but I have to make sure about this first. Yang Huan said seriously. I mean the kind of love between a man and a woman, not just between friends. If you tell me that you are not in love with Sister Ding Xiang, I don't need to tell you what I want to tell you, because it is very important. Guozi was still confused, but he could see the seriousness in Yang Huan's expression. Guozi hesitated for a while, then nodded gently and said, Okay, I admit that I do like Sister Ding Xiang. Did Brother Yang tell you? But don't tell Sister Ding Xiang. Before he could finish, Yang Huan laughed and said, That's enough. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? I have known that you like Sister Ding Xiang for a long time. At the end of last semester, my brother talked to you. Do you think he found out? I told him, didn't I? Now I want to know if you have a change of heart. Do I look like a playboy? Guozi complained. Okay, I am being paranoid. I am sorry, Xiaoguo. I am worried about you and Sister Ding Xiang. Yang Huan was a bit embarrassed. I will not keep you in suspense. I am here today to ask you something. You have liked Sister Ding Xiang for so long. Why haven't you confessed your love to her? Guozi was stunned and did not know how to answer. You are a man. Don't you know how to take the initiative? Show the courage you had when you sang for senior sister Du at the freshman party. Yang Huan continued. She had heard about this from everyone. It is not that I don't want to take the initiative, but I don't think it is the right time yet, Guozi stammered. If he were to explain everything as he had told Yang Yi, there would be a lot of things to say. Yang Huan did not have Yang Yi's patience. She frowned and said, What do you mean it is not the right time yet? You like Sister Ding Xiang, and Sister Ding Xiang likes you. Why don't you give it a try? Don't worry about being friends. If you can't be friends, you can be husband and wife. Master Huan's words had always been shocking. Guozi knew how Ding Xiang felt about him. He smiled bitterly and said, Lord Huan, it is not as simple as you think. I am not sure. You can't expect a girl to confess to you, right? Let me tell you, Xiaoguo, as a man, you have to confess first. Before Yang Huan could finish, Guozi, who was smart, had already figured out something. He asked in surprise, Confess first? Lord Huan, what do you mean? Is Sister Ding Xiang going to? Yang Huan saw that Guozi had guessed it, so she did not try to hide it. She said directly, That's right. I am so angry because of you. After so long, Sister Ding Xiang is going to confess to you. Guozi was dumbfounded. When that girl confessed to you, Sister Ding Xiang saw it too. Translator. WQL Editor. Alim. Before Yang Huan finished his words, Guozi had figured out the relationship between these events at once. Additionally, Ding Xiang's eyes flashed in his mind. At the same time, he recalled Ding Xiang's words. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Guozi was a little guilty at that time. Now that he thought about it, everything was connected. While Guozi was lost in his thoughts, Yang Huan told him how Ding Xiang was going to confess to him. She couldn't wait. She was afraid that Xue Baolin or Xue Baobao would steal you away. She probably heard you rejecting that girl, so she decided to confess to you. Yang Huan said with disappointment. Xiaoguo, as a man, how can you not be as brave as a girl? When Guozi was stunned by the sudden news, Yang Huan lectured him seriously. Sister Ding Xiang's family is not as rich as yours. You still want her to pluck up the courage to confess to you? What position will she have in the family in the future? I know. I didn't dare to confess because of these problems. But Lord Huan, don't misunderstand. I am not saying that Sister Ding Xiang is not good. I am just worried that my family will reject her. I don't want her to be hurt. Guozi finally came to himself. He was moved and said seriously, "Then what do you want?" Yang Huan scratched his hair angrily and asked, "I used to work hard to make myself better. If there was a chance, I would try to pursue Sister Ding Xiang," Guozi said in a low voice, lowering his eyes. "But now I know what you mean. As a man, how can I wait for a girl to confess to me?" Guozi raised his head and clenched his fists. His body was trembling with excitement. "I should have fallen in love with Sister Ding Xiang first. I was the one who pursued her. So I should be the one to confess to Sister Ding Xiang." Guozi was moved by Yang Huan's words about Sister Ding Xiang's confession. He decided not to care so much. He thought to himself, "I want to be with Sister Ding Xiang." No matter who tried to stop him, it was useless. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.